Shiki, New Life by Karam88. Chapter 1, Visit from 50 Years. Sotoba has been rebuilt to its former self 50 years later, so any of the main cast of the original Shiki are either elders or deceased, but the catch is, Sunako and Seishin are back to right the wrongs Sunako done to the village and are to help the villagers of Sotoba to resist a new threat. A new group of Shiki plan to inhabit Sotoba exactly like Sunako's old plans. Will Seishin and Sunako, along with new friends, help fight off these new and more bloodthirsty Shiki? Figures walked through the shady trees, starlight twinkled above them. Sunako, whatever you do, I want you to stay close to me. It is likely the villagers of Sotoba will still remember the stories of the Shiki invasion. The white-haired Jinru looked at Sunako, the black-eyed Lolita looked at her guardian. Don't worry Seishin Yuro, I am sure we can make them understand. Sunako said to Seishin. The young Shiki looked and saw Kainmasa Castle was also restored to its former glory. I need to help them. If we are to catch the culprits to the next attack, we could create a bond between Shiki and human. Sunako said, her black eyes facing the restored village of Sotoba. Taku, Toriai, I need you two to scout the village for other Shiki that are not any of us. Sunako said to two Shiki, looking around in their 20s. Toriai was a girl dressed with a tank top, yoga pants with a cloth hanging from the belt, sneakers, and wore her hair in a ponytail. Taku was a man who looked around 2 or 3 more years older than his friend, having blue hair that reached past his chest, a leather jacket, jeans, and sneakers. One thing they had in common were black eyes with piercing red pupils. Of course, Sunako, Toriai said, bowing in an uncomfortably formal fashion for Sunako's tastes and giggled. You don't need to act so formal, Toriai, Sunako said as both Shiki ran off to scan the area. Haruki Toriai and Yodai Taku both are 23 and 26 respectively. They were sick when they were drained. We found Haruki suffering a fatal injury and decided to revive her. Yodai was ill with a case of lung cancer from living in bad areas. We too bit and made him one of us. They are known to being highly loyal to me and Sunako ever since we healed them. Seishin said, writing the book he carried whenever he met new Shiki that became one with their current group. If they were alive still, Haruki would be 40 and Yodai would be 42, Seishin said to himself. Sunako listening to him talk about the two Shiki. They are some of the best Shiki we have, Sunako said. Tears started running down her face, thinking of the Shikis that accompanied her last time when she lived in Kainmasa. They remind me so much of Datsumi and even Chizuru, Sunako said with tears in her reddish black eyes. Patting her back, Seishin escorted Sunako to the large, windowless cabin that was found in the woods by Sotoba. This would be their base for now. We are going to right the wrongs that happened to this village those years ago and eliminate the new Shiki that have yet to thrive, Seishin said as he looked at his booklet he was carrying. The Inoshiki family, made up of twins known as Chi and Mitsuru, Seishin said in a deep, worried voice. They too have an adopted Shiki mother, who is named Ko, Seishin said with a low murmur. They shall not convert Sotoba into an undead town, Seishin said as he and Sunako went into the cabin. Seishin looked to see the dawn slowly rise. Sotoba shall be free, Seishin muttered. Chapter 2, Gossip of Inoshiki. Mitsuo, over here. Mitsuo Nitaga, an 18-year-old teen looked over his shoulder to see his childhood friend, Koton Idane waving to him near the bus stop. Mitsuo had to smile. Koton was always a girl with a highly curious mind and a massive imagination, something he always loved about the salmon pink-haired teen. Koton, what is it? Mitsuo said as he stopped to look at massive Kainmasa, standing gracefully at that hill. Stories were passed down saying Kainmasa was a cursed castle that was infested with vampires, but Mitsuo didn't believe the elders since he had no belief in the undead or supernatural. Would it be great if we lived in a castle like Kainmasa? I mean, it's large enough for 10 families or more, Koton said as her aqua eyes glimmered with wonder. I heard from Akihiro that the place has been bought by some people, Mitsuo said, rubbing the bridge of his nose to feel that large scar across it. Mitsuo remembered being attacked by a man when he walked home one night. Mitsuo fought him off, only for the man to slice his nose. Mitsuo still cringed at the thought of that insane man, and I mean it too. Koton and Mitsuo looked behind him to see their good friend, Akihiro Ida walking with the head of the Hyogo family. Hiroko, that house, may the spirits of the past bless this family, Hiroko said. Since her parents were priests and were deep into spiritual content, Hiroko normally held numerous spell tags with her Ano passions. I heard the people who are moving to Kainmasa call themselves the Shiki family. They are a family of a mother and 2 daughters. From what I heard, Mizuko was once a fashion designer and her daughters are real sweet and get along with many people, Akihiro said to his friends. Hiroko just looked onward at the massive castle. Well, I say it's a bunch of hoo-ha. Everyone looked to see it was none other than Chio Mashita, the snooty daughter of the brave and rich Mashita family. Anyone could tell that these people are crazy. I mean, I am rich enough to buy that mansion myself. Chio exclaimed, only for a new figure to walk behind her. Don't keep your hopes up, Chio. Remember, you have to pay off the vase you broke in your father's office. Mikio Shiga smiled and looked at the characters with his pale brown eyes. Chio brushed a long piece of her dirty blonde hair in arrogance. Don't call me by my first name, you peasants. Call me Miss Mashita, Lady Mashita, or Madam Mashita. Chio pouted as she ran off. Wow, what a outburst. Hiroko giggled to herself. Funny, I never thought we were peasants. Kotone joked as Mitsuo laughed a bit. Well, to the Mashita family, everyone in Sotoba bows down to them and treats them like they are the owners of the universe or something, Mikio said as he looked at Kainmasa. The castle was severely burnt when the Sotoba fire started all those years ago, and it was just recently restored to its former self. So, I hope those people will be nice, Kotone said with a smile on her face. Well, even if they are kind, we are a bit too old to hang around the girls. I heard they are around 14 or 15 years old, Mikio said, only for Hiroko to talk. But I heard they have a maid. Her name is Ran Mikida and she would be going to school with us, Hiroko explained, and everyone was excited. I wonder if Ran will be our friend, Kotone said, her aqua eyes glimmering with happiness. Excuse me, did you say something about me? Everyone looked behind him to see Ran. She was wearing a school uniform and had fuchsia eyes and a grayish-blue bob-cut hair. Hi, I am Ran Mikida and I serve the Inoshiki family. Ran smiled as she looked at all the students. Hi Ran, welcome to Sotoba, Akihiro said, running his fingers through his short ginger hair and looked at the girl with interest sparkling in his gray eyes. Pleasure is all mine. So, care to introduce yourselves? Ran said as she scanned everyone with her eyes. I am Akihiro Ida and right here is the head of the Hyogo family, Hiroko. Hiroko bowed as Ran did the same. Afterwards Hiroko fixed her long, sky blue hair. I am Kotone Idane and I really want to be your friend, Kotone introduced, and Ran giggled. I would love that a lot. Ran smiled as she faced Mitsuo. I am Mitsuo Netaga. I hope you are fine with becoming a great friend. Mitsuo smiled as Ran giggled. Thanks. I hope we shall. Ran looked at them all happily and caught a glimpse of a worried look from Hiroko's dark blue gaze. What is it, Miss Hyogo? Ran asked the spiritual girl. I just bid you good luck. The mansion was built on cursed grounds and I wish for the family and yourself to be careful, Hiroko said as she and Ran bowed. If needed, I could put spell tags around the house's grounds to ensure luck. Hiroko aimed and Ran shook her head. Sorry, the family isn't too fond of the idea of spiritual objects, but thanks for the offer. Ran smiled and shook Hiroko's hand gently. I should be going. It's time for me to head back. They would want me to take care of them, Ran said as she waved to her new friends. Mitsuo, as he waved, thought Ran's eyes flashed into pitch-black ones with red pupils, but he shook the thought away. I am just imagining things, Mitsuo said as he watched the girl run towards Kainmasa. I heard the Inoshikas are a massive family, made up of siblings, aunts, uncles, parents, children, and other relatives, Kotone said as she looked up at the hill of Kainmasa. At least it's large enough for them to all live, Akihiro said with a worried murmur. Everything will be just fine. Chapter 3, Meet Gil. Mitsuo sat down in class, taking notes. The teacher was writing down on the whiteboard. It was a bit hard taking notes, mainly because the 2 girls, Fumiko Ramu and Miwaka Matsuzaki, constantly made paper airplane notes and let them fly. Miss Ramu and Miss Matsuzaki, stop making paper airplanes and pay attention. The teacher, Mr. Aimu, said in an annoyed tone to the girls. Fumiko giggled while Miwa stood up, fixing the hairband on her long magenta ponytails, and faced the teacher with confidence in her dark violet eyes. Sir, we were throwing those paper airplanes for you. We had a message in them. Mr. Aimu took Miwa's words in and grabbed one airplane. Inside was a note and he cried tears of joy. Was fine. Oh goodness, my sweet nephew. Kyo is alright. Mr. Aimu screamed out loud. Happiness brought tears to his eyes. Mr. Imu's sister, Miss Hanaoi Yamada's son was Kyo. He was a strong and lively teen and was 18. One day, Kyo was attacked by a bunch of thugs just 2 months ago. Despite surviving the attack, Kyo's left eye was left blind and useless, and Kyo demanded it to be taken out. Kyo wears an eye patch where the eye used to be, but afterwards he caught a kidney disease afterwards and was given a kidney transplant. Everyone told Mr. Imu that Kyo would never make it, but it seems like Kyo did and is now fine. Miwa and Fumiko were some of Kyo's best friends, being buddies since they were 4. They always visited him regardless of the time. He is going to attend class next week. Fumiko yelled to Mr. Imu and he broke down with happiness. The gods gave my nephew another chance, like I always knew they would. Mr. Imu stood up and looked at his students. Kids, we will continue the project next week. For the rest of the day you will have some free time to chat or catch up on schoolwork. Everyone cheered as Mr. Imu gave the announcement. I'm glad Kyo's fine, Yuchi Koizumi said as he was talking with his friend, Shoichi Mashida. Shoichi was Chiyo's younger brother despite not looking like it. Shoichi had very messy, shoulder-length gold hair, dark blue eyes, and a face that always contained a positive smile. Chiyo always hated her brother and treated him like her servant and made him the butt of her jokes. Anyone who was considered friends with Shoichi were going to have to deal with Chiyo's taunts. Everyone remembered when Shoichi moved to Sotoga. He wore a black suit, sleeked his hair back, and talked in a rather formal voice and spoke in a big city accent. After a month, Shoichi dropped his city attitude and decided to do things he wanted, such as not combing his hair, wearing commoner clothing, and making friends. People didn't know why Shoichi decided to change so drastically, but many believe it was to humiliate Chiyo. I never met Kyo before. Is he nice? Ran whispered to Mitsuo. The girl looked nervous. Yeah, he is kind, cares for others, competitive, has good sportsmanship, and always likes having friends around. Mitsuo explained and Ran smiled. He seems very kind if this many people are so worried for him, Ran said, her fuchsia eyes scanning the classroom. After school, Ran and Mitsuo walked to the clinic to see Kyo. Can we see Kyo, please? Mitsuo asked the woman behind the front desk, who is Miss Yamahata. Of course, he has been expecting company. Miss Yamahata escorted Ran and Mitsuo to the room where Kyo was kept. He is still recovering, so be careful with him, Miss Yamahata informed the teens as they opened the door. Kyo faced them, his single magenta eye gleamed with happiness. Mitsuo, it's been a while. Who is your friend? Kyo asked as his eye looked at Ran. This is Ran Makeda. She is a maid for the Shiki family, the ones who moved to Kanemasa. Mitsuo informed Kyo while Ran bowed. It's a pleasure to meet you, Kyo, Ran said, and Kyo smiled. Pleasure is all mine, Kyo told the girl. She stared at his eye patch a bit before looking down. Kyo was shirtless and they could easily see the stitches where the kidney transplant occurred. I am sure Mitsuo told you a lot about me. Kyo smiled and looked at Ran. He has, Ran told Kyo as he ran his fingers through his jet black hair. Thought he would. Mitsuo is always the one to give the scoop to new people, right Mitsuo? Mitsuo smiled and looked at his friend happily. So, you feeling better? Mitsuo asked and Kyo laughed. Yeah, better than last month. Kyo then laid on the bed, looking at the ceiling. Uncle came by and so did Kotone, Miwa, and Fumiko. Hiroko also came by with Yuchi, Shoichi, and Akihiro. Kyo looked at Ran and Mitsuo happily. Also Mikio came by with those circus girls. Mitsuo laughed as Kyo said circus girls. There were these 2 girls, good friends with them that want to be performers at a local circus. Their names were Rika Shibata and Ikono. Rika was a Lolita girl who wore different styles of it and wished to be one of the tightrope performers or a dancer. I wanted to do magic tricks or be one of those fortune tellers. No matter what, Rika and I knew how to make everyone laugh, and seeing how Kyo smiled, it seems like he had a good time with their company. They attended their same school, but so many can't seem to recognize them with a school uniform instead of their normal clothes. So, I guess Chiyo didn't show up. Figures, Mitsuo said with a disgusted look at the queen annoyance that she was. No, she stopped by. She told me I should die and left me. Mitsuo had his eyes wide and so did Ran. I was the same way guys, Kyo said as he started to chuckle. I'll say the same thing to her if she gets sick or injured. Kyo was getting drowsy. He slowly looked at his friends. I got some medicine to help the disease a bit if it still is in me, so I am a bit drowsy, Kyo said as Ran and Mitsuo decided to wave. See ya Kyo, they said as Kyo waved back. He is very nice, no wonder you guys like him, Ran said with a charming smile. Kyo walked along the night path where Kane Masa was standing. Kyo doesn't deserve to live. This village doesn't deserve to exist. All these people should never deserve a right to be born, Kyo said as she stopped by Kane Masa. What a lovely building it was. Maybe she can go see the rich people who bought it. Kyo started to walk up to Kane Masa. The building was wonderful and Kyo couldn't help but crack a smile. Reminds me of the castle that was by Tokyo. Too bad they tore it down. Kyo stopped and felt some odd feeling. Someone or something was watching her. Kyo knocked on the door gently. A woman stood in a beautiful kimono, wearing her brunette hair in a bun and ponytail, and her eyes were black with a hint of blue in them. Why, hello there. What is a young woman like you doing all alone at night? The woman smiled a kind smile and Kyo bowed. I am Madame Chio Mashita of the famous and rich Mashita family, Kyo said, and the woman bowed back. I am Koino Shiki. Nice to meet you. Ko bowed happily as two girls appeared behind her. Mother, who's that? A pale blue-haired girl asked, and the lavender-haired girl behind her stared at Kyo. She? Mitsuru. This is Chio and she is one of the neighbors. Ko answered Mitsuru as she beamed with happy faces. She should have dinner with us, Mitsuru said with delight. Of course she can. Ko smiled to her dark-eyed daughters, an odd trait the two seemed to obtain from her. If that's fine with you, Miss Chio, Ko asked the girl who was in a rather dressy outfit. Chio wore a long dress that had black leggings and pale lavender gloves. Her slippers were made out of fine lavender painted crystal and she had some magenta rimming around her dress. Her dress also had a triangular see-through area on her chest to reveal some cleavage but not too much. It seems I am ready. Let's begin then. Chio walked into the building and the doors were shut. A scream was sounded in the building, but no one was able to hear Chio. Chapter 4, Secrets of Inoshiki. Chio got sick, Shoichi said to Mr. Aimu. Well, only Ran and Mitsuo know what I am going to say, Kyo said with a smirk. Kyo was announced he could come back to school earlier because he was healing very fast and he even felt a lot better. So, what sickness does she have? Shoichi? Mr. Aimu asked the gold-haired student. She has anemia but the doctors are saying she should be fine, Shoichi informed everyone. Kyo glared at his own table. His magenta eye gleamed with anger at what Chio said to him yesterday. Patting his back were the circus gals, Rika and I. That's odd, because my Goro is sick with anemia, said a girl named Yukiko Shizuoka. My father has it too, a boy named Satoshi Doyahara muttered. Is there, perhaps an epidemic? Ran asked, looking concerned. If so, I am scared for Miss Yamahata's safety. One of the two girls that were Miss Momole's said. Miss Momole was a kind elderly woman who lived at the southern end of Sotoba. She witnessed the fire when she was a little girl and recalled the story. She had a husband named Takeuki who lived with her. They didn't have kids and by the time she was in her 40s, Takeuki was killed in a car crash when he was attending a business meeting in Tokyo. Heartbroken, Momoi spent the next few months drinking and taking antidepressants which were just making her mood worse. She decided she would commit suicide until she found the two girls, orphaned on the streets. Momoi felt sorry for the girls, homeless and orphaned, and decided to adopt them. The girls' names were Reiko Saitama and Umkino Shida. Miss Momoi loved the girls more than anything and respected the times, good and bad, when she was with them. Reiko was a tall and slender girl with pale lavender eyes and is always seen wearing Lolita and a school uniform when the days come by. Reiko is mostly known for having her bangs in curls and her golden blonde hair tied with bows, creating large twin drill ponytails. Normally wears her hair in interesting ways, putting her hair in pigtails and looping the rest of her hair at the back. Her eyes are light green and her hair is orange with crimson highlights. When the days are good and sunny, would normally be seen wearing a green bikini top and a swimming skirt and has a pair of light blue high-heeled boots. We must be careful around others, in case they accidentally infect Miss Momoi, cried to her adopted sister. Miss Momoi's last name is Igo. No one is sure why she gave the girls different names, but all is certain that she loves them as if they were her own children. You girls do realize that Momoi is is 59 years old. She may die from an sickness like this if not careful. Satoshi warned Reiko and we might go see Joe, even though she is a brat. She is my sister, Shoichi said with confidence in his eyes. After school, Mitsuo was walking to the clinic to see how Chio and Miss Yamahata and everyone else was doing. Escorting him was Reiko and who offered to come with him after Miss Momoe prepared some flowers to give to Chio. Hey Chio, how is it going? Said as Reiko and Mitsuo came in. I never expected to have guests, Chio said weakly. Well, you were mean to us, but we decided to do you a favor just because we are nice, Mitsuo said as he placed the flowers in a vase beside Chio's nightstand. Mitsuo, I have been thinking about everything I said. I'm sorry, Reiko. And Mitsuo looked at Chio with shock. I am sorry, I won't vote anything else. Again, Chio said as she looked closely at Ran. Mistress Ko is gorgeous. You're lucky to work for her, Ran. Chio said as she closed her eyes and began to sleep. Miss Yamahata came in. She is very tired, so I think you should leave her be, Miss Yamahata said with a smile and escorted them out. Ran's eyes flashed to black and red for a few seconds before turning back to Fujiya. Walking home, Ran and Mitsuo were going to the grocery store to buy something for Chio. Chio seems to be very sick, Ran said with a sad tone to her voice. She is strong, besides it's just anemia. It will wear off soon, Mitsuo reassured her. Something about anemia? Ran and Mitsuo looked up to see a young woman, perhaps 25 who had pale brown eyes, long, orchid hair that went to her waist, and wore red sneakers, purple yoga pants, and a faded green tank top. Yes, you see, our friend got sick with anemia and so has a few of our villagers, Mitsuo informed the woman and she had her eyes widen. I see, that is scary, the woman said, looking down in thought. Oh, I'm sorry, I haven't introduced myself yet. My name is Reiko Takagi. The woman smiled and Mitsuo looked at her. Are you by any chance related to my friend, Risa Takagi? Mitsuo asked and she shook her head. Heaven's number. Although she seems like a nice person, Reiko said and gave a small smile. I better go back to my family. I got a lot of groceries here for them, Reiko said as she looked at 2 carts filled to the top with groceries. Oh, well see you Reiko. Oh, I am Mitsuo Netaga and this is Ran Makata of the Shiki family. Mitsuo introduced themselves. I hope to see you both soon. Reiko smiled as she hauled both carts after she waved to them. Seishin, Sunako? Reiko approached the cabin carefully until she seen Seishin open the door up. Reiko, what is it? Seishin asked her. I met one of the Inoshikas. This one was a Jinru named Ran Mikada, Reiko nervously said and Seishin gasped. You met their only Jinru? Seishin looked at Reiko. She was a Jinru just like him. A reason she was out in the sun. Sunako was correct when she said they would strike Sotoba, Reiko said with worry in her voice. There was a boy named Mitsuo who told me his friend has anemia. I am certain that those Inoshiki family members got them, Reiko muttered and Seishin looked down at the village. We better prepare to let them out soon, Seishin said as he and Reiko disappeared into the cabin. Chapter 5, Is it anemia? Chio is dead. Miss Yamahata looked at Chio's dead body and her sobbing family. She was just a girl who started her life. Why did it end her so suddenly? Miss Mashita said as she looked at her daughter's deceased body. I will get Hotaka Ozaki. You would know what to do, Miss Yamahata said as she left the family with Chio's body. Shoichi looked down at Chio's body and wept quietly. I know she was rude to me but, why her? Shoichi fell to the ground and cried. Chio, he screamed with mixed sobs. A young man with ginger hair appeared with a young woman with mint green hair in a long ponytail styled like a drill ran towards the sobbing family. We are so sorry, we never knew anemia could kill someone so fast, the girl said as she brushed Shoichi's back. We tried many things, Emmy, but anemia and heart failure? This is the fastest anemia killed someone in years, Hotaka said, remembering all the stories his father, Toshio Ozaki told him. We will run a few tests. We will make sure we didn't make a mistake on her diagnosis. Emmy rubbed Shoichi's back before walking away with Hotaka. Chio is dead? Kyo said with a startled tone. His single magenta eye gleamed with worry. It seems the whole village has been getting sick. Tokiko said. The girl said, looking at her classmates with those mysterious, bright magenta eyes she owns. Tokiko Kai is her full name. It means child of the blood moon, something that really happened. Tokiko is very mysterious and many people tend to avoid her because of her strange attitude, her only friend being Kumiko Akita, who is very well-known diva in school and showed compassion for the odd moon girl, and they willingly became friends. Tokiko has multiple symbols of the blood moon on her outfits, such as one that clips her outfit together, and even she streaked her pure white hair with red. She always wears a black leather trench coat with blood moons symbolizing the pockets, a red choker necklace with the blood moon on it. Her trench coat has sewn on pinkish red lace that has imprints of red crescent moons on them. She zips the top half of her trench coat that exposes her stomach and waist. She never shows her top half as it is always zipped, but her friend Kumiko mentioned she wears a red bikini top. She wears a light gray miniskirt with red waistline on it. She wears white and red socks and pinkish red sneakers. She even has nice blood moon earrings on. Tokiko looked at Mitsuo. Her gaze was intimidating, but she didn't mean such. "That's my Tokiko," Kumiko said with a smile. Normally Kumiko likes to be called Akita so no one would confuse her name with anyone else who has the Igo suffix in their names. Kumiko's other friend is Sora Takare, who doesn't seem to have a friendship with Tokiko as much as Akita. Well, if anemia is killing people faster than normal, it's bound to have something else quite serious with it, Satoshi Doihara muttered, his hand scratching his shaggy blue hair in confusion. "Koji has it. It's saddening, but I hope the doc can get him fixed before that," Rin said, giving cold-looking glances at everyone. "Ayaka too," Kotone sadly said, and everyone gasped. "But Ayaka is almost immune to everything." "How is she sick?" Shoichi asked. His eyes were more wide than a barn owl's. "Perhaps there is more to this sickness that meets the eye," Yoshikazu said. His green eye and blinded gray eye looked at everyone. Yoshikazu was born blind in one eye, but he takes his blind side with pride. He has a lot of good friends who look out for him, but mostly, Yoshikazu feels like he is being rejected. Yoshikazu wishes to do as much things as the people in the village can do, but he is constantly being held back because of his left eye being blind. The same rejection is slowly happening to Kyoto. Yoshikazu Gaifu, the young man who refuses to give up despite his blinded left eye, Mitsuo muttered underneath his breath, slowly smiling as Yoshikazu looked at his friend, Sunio Yui. Sunio never gave up on Yoshikazu and acted like his good friend can't do anything his mind thought of. Sunio is very friendly and supportive of Yoshikazu. He started to wear a t-shirt with the kanji, which meant strength. "I wonder why this is happening," muttered, her sister Reiko with her. "These have been harder times on the village," Miyokujira said, playing with her hair in a worried manner. "It's got to be the sicknesses from the animals. They can carry harmful pests," Mikio said with a clearly confused face, looking deep for an answer. "But Kyo hates animals, and also we know that Koji is allergic to cows. There is no way he would have gotten an infection if it meant him going near an animal," Rin said. The strong Shunsun era said. "Rin's got that right. There is no way Koji would have been infected unless he was near some animals," Yoshio Kyoto muttered. His mahogany brown hair was messy from scratching his head. "If you think that's bad, my mother and sisters have it." A punk rocker teenager named Hikaru kneeled against the wall, his pale lavender eyes looking at everyone in the room. "Really, Hikaru?" Jiro Takabana, a red-haired teenager said, his eyes were wide as he stared at his friends. "I heard your conversation from outside," a little voice of a girl said as everyone turned to face a little pink-haired girl holding a white rabbit plushie. It was young Junko Masuda, the lawyer's daughter in Sotoba. Junko is an odd girl, but she is really friendly despite her oddities. Being a 5-year-old with a home full of bigger brothers must be tough for little Junko, but somehow she pulls through, always carrying her white rabbit doll, Mr. Fluffles, and a smile on her face. "Anemia has threatened my brother's life too, you know, Masayoshi," Junko said, her dark green eyes looking worried for her older brother. "Ever since he decided to meet that Yuki girl, he got anemia," Junko said, and everyone froze when she mentioned an unfamiliar name. "Who's Yuki?" "Junko?" Mitsuo asked the girl as she looked at him with worried eyes. "One of the Inoshikas, She claims to be their cousin twice removed since she has a different last name. Her last name is Hojo, if you all were wondering, Junko explained, holding Mr. Fluffles closer to her chest. What about the rest of your family, Junko? Mr. Imu asked the mysterious young girl. Mom and Dad are fine, so is Norai and Kazuhiko. Junko looked at everyone and Mitsuo noticed Junko was starting to cry. Mr. Imu grabbed Junko and held her tightly as she cried softly. Anemia threatened Masayoshi's health. I don't think he will make it, she cried with mixed sobs as she held Mr. Fluffles close to her face. Kyo and Mr. Imu held Junko close, hoping everything will be fine for her family. School was over as Mitsuo heard that Junko was taken back home to Nobu and Momoko Masuda, and Mitsuo wanted to check on Masayoshi since Mitsuo was very good friends with their brother, Norai. Mitsuo, come on in, Momoko, their mother said as she invited Mitsuo inside the lawyer's home. My husband is conducting a case, so he is very busy, Momoko said as Mitsuo saw Junko, Kazuhiko, and Norai settling down on the couch and eating ice cream. I gave them an ice cream night to make them feel a little better, but even I am worried for my precious son, Momoko said in sadness. She had her dark, shoulder-length, lavender hair down. She wore faded denim jeans, green pleats, and wore a green sports bra with a lavender and a pink streak on it. Her red eyes looked at Masayoshi, who was laying on the bed while breathing heavily. If you want to talk to him, now would be the time, Momoko said with her eyes dark and gloomy. Mitsuo looked down at his friend. Masayoshi's shoulder-length black hair was messy, his cauliflower blue eyes were dull, and his skin was very pale. Mitsuo, Masayoshi said in surprise. Hey, it's me, Masayoshi, Mitsuo said, looking at his friend as Masayoshi gave him a sickly smile. I had a feeling you would come, Masayoshi said as he looked at him. I heard you had a girlfriend, mind telling me about her? Mitsuo said, wanting to get a clear detail on Yuki. She is beautiful. She is my midnight beauty since the family only lets her outside at night. But she is perfect, red and black eyes that shimmer, punk rock clothing and a voice that sounds mysterious and gothic whenever she talks, beautiful light blue hair with dark blue highlights. She is mine and I am happy I have her, Masayoshi said as he gave Mitsuo the picture of him and Yuki. Whoa, that is Yuki? Mitsuo looked at Yuki. Masayoshi got lucky with her. She wore a light orchid corset that was held on by a special necklace that held the corset up. It had black lace down it and had ruffles at the start of her waist. She wore a snowy white miniskirt and had long and black, near-knee-high socks with white shoes that had pale purple pearls on them. She wore fingerless gloves that went past her elbow and had punk-styled, silver-spiked bracelets. She wore her hair in a loose ponytail, her hair being quite spiky looking at some parts with a pale green ponytail holder at the end. Also she wore an orchid bandana on her head. Her skin was very pale and her eyes were black with red pupils, something the Shiki family called a birth effect in their family. She visits me every night to see how I am doing. I am so grateful to have her in my life, Masayoshi said as he closed his eyes and soon stopped his breathing. Masayoshi, Masayoshi, Masayoshi! Mitsuo screamed. Everyone in the family mourned. Chapter 6, Research the Epidemic. Mitsuo, your sister Reika is coming over for dinner with her husband, Ryota Miyamoto. Mitsuo heard his mother call and he grunted. He loved his sister but he hated her husband. Ryota always wants to treat Mitsuo horribly, examples being treating him like a maid, making him the butt of his jokes, and hitting Mitsuo when he doesn't refer him as Sir Miyamoto or anything else formal. Mitsuo tried to tell Eika and his parents about his behavior but they never catch him doing it, and also they think of him as an angel. He always went on his parents' good side. Well, I am going over to Tokiko's house. She wanted to see me. Mitsuo lied to his parents. He just wanted to visit the blood moon obsessed girl to escape the madness of Ryota. Mitsuo even said he would take Tokiko out of many different people. Alright Mitsuo, just be careful not to catch a cold, since that seems like the case with many out here nowadays, Mitsuo's mother said as she was cooking up the stew. Mitsuo knocked on Chokiko's door. Opening the door was two friends of hers, Miko Housen and Michio Iwakana. Mitsuo had no idea the two were here, but he knew they were also pretty odd themselves. Michio was into punk fashion while Miko was into anything that was steampunk. No one knows how they became Chokiko's friends because Michio was frightening, Miko was a fiction reader, while Chokiko was mysterious. "Ah, Mitsuo, what has you coming over?" Michio said, her hand on her hips, and looking at him with those piercing yellow eyes she always owned. "Sorry to bother you, but, can I come inside please?" Mitsuo asked while Miko decided to take over. Her mechanical right leg made a clanking sound as she walked. Miko suffered a case of flesh-eating bacteria when she was little and it took her leg. That is why she has a mechanical one her father made her since he was an inventor. "Why would you want to hang out with us freaks? You avoid Chokiko at school and us whenever we are around, so why do you want to be around us now?" Miko smirked as she asked the question. "My brother-in-law, Ryota Miyamoto." Michio's left eye twitched as he mentioned the name. "Well, that's enough to invite you. Come on in." Michio smiled as she held his hand, taking him through the kitchen and directly into Chokiko's room. Ryota is one to make anyone mad. He acts kind just to get what he wants. Michio spat in disgust. Once he was her former boyfriend, but he broke up with her after Michio found out he only wanted her for her money, since her mother worked for the rich university and her father was a banker, so targeting Michio seemed like a good idea for Ryota at the time. "Well, at least you two now have something in common," Miko said. She too despised Ryota mostly because he played multiple horrid pranks on her that broke her mechanical limb more than 5 times. They opened the door to Chokiko's room to see her painting a solar system painting, unfinished but still unbelievably pretty. "There you two are." "Oh, hi Mitsuo." Chokiko put her paintbrush down to look at him. Her bright magenta eyes gleamed in the blood red light her room made. "Hey Chokiko, that's a pretty picture you made," Mitsuo said looking at the girl's room in wonder. So many people believe that Chokiko sacrificed people under the light of a blood moon, but her room was amazing. The lighting was red and all over her room were paintings and figures of a blood moon. Even the clothing that was spilling out of a dresser had them. "My room must freak you out, doesn't it?" Chokiko said as she looked outside at the night skies to see the pure white moon. How she wishes to see it turn red in just a snap. "I think your room is beautiful Chokiko." Mitsuo put his hand on her shoulder to get her attention. Mitsuo finally noticed a letter in her hand. This was for Tsuneo, you know, Toshikazu's friend. "But I am very afraid he would reject it." Chokiko looked down at it. The envelope had a blood moon stamped on it to close the note and it had to. "Tsuneo from Chokiko. I hope we become good friends." "Is it a love letter?" Mitsuo looked down at it and Chokiko nodded her head, a faint blush appearing on her pale face. "It is, but I am too scared to put it in the mail." Chokiko looked at Mitsuo with worry in her face. "Mitsuo, would you mind if you put it in the mailbox for me? As a good friend you are, I think you're the only one who I can get to do such a thing." Chokiko looked at her note and handed it to Mitsuo. He gratefully took it and put it in his pocket. "I promise I shall get it in the mail tonight," Mitsuo said with a smile. Soon the girl with shaggy, shoulder-length brown hair with black tips dashed in the room and looked at everyone. "Guys, have you heard it yet or have you not?" The girl wore a navy blue jacket and had a pink scarf on. She also had black pants and green boots. "Mika, what is it?" Miko asked the strange girl. Mika's damn yellow eyes were looking around the room. "Koji and Ioka died today." A boy appeared behind Mika. He had scarlet hair with messy bangs and was a little long, stopping before it reached his shoulders. "Are you sure, Kenda?" Michio stood to face the odd duo as they had worried expressions glued on their faces. "Who are you two?" Mitsuo asked the duo as they stared at him. Mika blinked a few times, revealing pitch-black eyeshadow. "This is Mika Watanabe and Kenta Ishikawa. They lived in the village for 6 years." Michio introduced the duo. "They are friends to Sakiko Baoshi, the girl in our class. You know, the black-haired girl with brown eyes and keeps her hair in curvy pigtails," Miko explained, and soon Mitsuo remembered the two walking with Saki to school. "Poor Hikaru, His little sister and mother may die. I don't want to see his heart broken, Michio said with her hands clasped and placed on her chest. The two have been dating since last year, mostly due to how they met thanks to their love for punk rock. Michio also started a band with Hikaru 2 weeks ago. My good friend, Masayoshi died too, Mitsuo said with sorrow, remembering how the doctors said he died from anemia and heart failure. If you guys noticed, there seems to be some pattern going on. Tokiko soon concluded and grabbed a piece of paper and wrote all the names and the ages of those who were having anemia currently or died from it. Michio was 17 and died on October 1st. Masayoshi was 16 and died on October 2nd. Hikaru's sisters, Ayaka and Koji had it and both are 17 and 18 and died tonight, October 4th. Nanami and Shinatsu, both 13 and 15 have it and I predict their death being tomorrow. Their mother, who was age 32 would die the following day. Tokiko looked at her chart and everyone noticed it. Anemia killed everyone 4 days after they got infected by it, Mugo said with amazement. It wasn't anemia that finished them off. Hotaka Ozaki said that they died at night from heart failure. Kenta mentioned and soon it all made sense. They all died from heart failure. Chio, Masayoshi, Ayaka, and Koji. Mika muttered and looked at everyone. Then this epidemic is different than others, Mugo said and soon got an idea. Hotaka must have records of past illnesses in the clinic, Michio said before they all ran outside and towards the clinic. What are you brats doing here? Said a fancy-dressed young lady. It was Hotaka's girlfriend and the mayor's daughter, Naoki Shireen. Naoki, is Hotaka here? Or at least Miss Yamahata or Emi? Mitsuo asked the dark, pinkish red-haired girl who snorted. Miss Yamahata went home and Emi and Hotaka are very busy with whatever the heck this disease is. Not like I care about who dies or lives, Naoki said with a voice full of disgust. Hey, how dare you say that to anybody, you bratty princess, Michio said with anger in her yellow eyes and her fists up, ready to fight her. Only the common folk go. I stay as long as I need. Plus, you commoners are easily replaceable, Naoki said and made Kenta and Mika hold back a angered Michio. Naoki, who's out here? Hotaka looked to see everyone standing and Naoki put on that nice girl face she learned to use so well. I was telling them not to bother you, sweetie. Hotaka looked down at his cruel-hearted girlfriend and he looked at everyone. Why are you all here at this time? Hotaka asked Mitsuo who stood beside Tokiko and Muko. We wanted to see the clinic sold files, Mitsuo bravely said to Hotaka. Why is that? Is something wrong? Hotaka ached and they explained the pattern of how people got anemia then heart failure and died in a total of 4 days. Alright, I need to help Emi watch Hikaru's sisters and mother, Hotaka said as he led them to the file room where multiple files of multiple cases were kept. Be warned that some files are most likely lost or destroyed thanks to that fire from 50 years ago, so be careful. Hotaka let them check out the files while Naoki looked at them with disgust and then walked with Hotaka. Alright, we all need to search for files that mention anemia and then heart failure during the night hours, Mitsuo announced and everyone scampered off to find anything that could explain the odd illness going around. After an hour or two, everyone gathered a few files detailing something similar. Megumi Shimizu, Nao Yasamari, Toru. A lot of people had this illness, Michio said and soon Tokiko held another bit of a file. This one shows that they've been bitten by insects. Tokiko gave the file to Mitsuo and he looked through them. Why do these bites look familiar? Mitsuo said. He grew up in a household that were horror movie fans and somehow, somewhere, these bite marks reminded him of a certain movie. Mimi, wait up. A young voice rang out and barking went out. What the? Kento was soon tackled by a golden retriever as she licked his face. Mimi, get off Kenta. It was Sanori Omiya with her 3 younger brothers, Ken, Yasuhiro, and Toshiyuki. Sanori was still dressed in her school uniform and had a light blue leash in her hand, possibly Mimi's. Sanori was 16, turning 17 next month in November. Her brothers Ken was 8, Yasuhiro was 7, and Toshiyuki was 9. I am sorry Kenta. Mimi must have gotten excited when she saw you. You are her dog sitter, anyway, Sanori said as she grabbed Mimi and put her leash back on. It's fine, really Sanori, Kenta said as he looked at the dark blue-eyed girl. Sanori was a very pretty girl her age, having a good height and weight on her, long aquamarine pigtails that were styled like drills that reached down to her chest area, unlike Reiko's very long ones that reached to her legs. Her brothers also had eyes that were different shades of blue and hair that was different shades of green like their sister, Ken having the darkest green hair and Toshiyuki having the darkest eyes out of the brothers. The fact with the brothers was they loved Sanori very much and hoped nothing would take her away from them. They are the reason why many of Sanori's boyfriends broke up with her. Did Hotaka invite you to do research? Sanori asked and Mitsuo smiled. Yeah. You see, we are trying to figure out what is the cause of the illness spreading around Sotoba and to see if there is a cure, Mitsuo explained and Sanori smiled. I hope you find out about it, Mitsuo, Toshiyuki said with an eager face on. Mitsuo's the best when it comes to finding out about things, Ken said with a smile. Yep, I remember the time he found our old basketball in the drugstore and he went in and got it, Yasuhiro said with a smile. We'd best be going. Mimi has a checkup in the morning and we have to study for an exam tomorrow, Sanori said and looked at her brothers, handing the dog leash to Yasuhiro. Well, see you soon then, Sanori, Nika said as the group waved and went back home with Mimi leading them. Naoki was walking home because Hotaka said she should go. The nerve of everyone. It was possibly that stingy little Mitsuo, Naoki said as she stomped towards Sotoba soon seeing a shadow of some sort. Hey, who's there? Naoki said with a mad face on, raising her parasol up to use it as a weapon. Naoki soon saw it was a young girl with long purple hair and had black and red eyes. Hello, I am Yuriko Sekai. I am one of the members of the Shiki family, Yuriko said while Naoki lowered her parasol. Okay, you're just a kid, Naoki said. Yuriko followed Naoki to her home. Can I come in and meet your family? I want to get to know everyone in the village since we moved here, Yuriko said with a small smile. Sure, just make it quick, Naoki said as she opened the door. Yuriko followed. Watching in the shadows, were three figures, all had glowing black and red eyes. They were styled in more gothic outfits and soon it was clear. They were Chio, Masayoshi, and Ran stood and looked down. Yuriko done her duty well, now we have to wait for the others and soon we are able to invade any house in Sotoba, Ran said. Her orchid eyes were now black and red like her companions. Being a Shiki is better than being a petty human, Chio said with a smirk while Masayoshi looked at his partners with a worried glance. But my family, they think I am dead, Masayoshi said with tears starting to form. Oh get over it you crybaby. My parents think I am dead and you don't see me crying my eyes out, Chio said. She looked at Ran. Soon our time to take over Sotoba will begin, Ran said as she looked at the sky, towards Kainmasa. Everything will be perfect? Chapter 7, Mournful Morning. I am sorry, Hikaru and Mr. C, but, Nanami and Chinitsa are gone. Hotaka looked at the sobbing father and the frustrated brother. Why are they gone? Did you misdiagnose my sisters? Hikaru grabbed Hotaka Ozaki by his shirt collar as Emi gasped. I lost family too kid. My dad's gone thanks to age and my girlfriend Naoki has the same disease. Hotaka looked at the sobbing punk rocker. I tried Hikaru. I really did, Hotaka said with sorrow in his eyes as the younger man punched the walls out of anger and sadness. New people checked in like Shiji Araki, Takehiko Inomoto, Ama Yatsuji, Hisashi Rinoshida, and Nobuyuki Ozo. Hotaka looked at the sleeping forms of the mentioned teenagers and saw how pale they were becoming. Someone said before they died, each one invited a child in the house. Do you think the kids they invited were infected too? Hotaka? Emi asked, looking at her dear friend with worry. Naoki said there was a girl named Yuriko she invited in, said she was one of the members in the Inoshiki family. Emi explained. The parents also told me that Nobuyuki invited a boy named Minabu, Hisashi invited a girl named Shika, Shiji invited a girl named Bunko, Amaya invited a boy named Sho, and Takehiko invited a boy named Kazuo. Emi explained in further detail while Hotaka looked at Hikaru's ill mother. She was the last of the girls to die in the family. Miss C? Hotaka looked at Miss C's dim green eyes as she looked at him. How are my daughters, doctor? Miss C looked at Hotaka, the man not knowing what to say. They're gone. aren't they?" Miss C said while Hitaka gave her a regretful nod of his head. "I'm sorry. I wish I could have saved them," Hotaka said to the dying woman. "How did they go, sir?" Miss C said, looking at him with dull eyes. "Anemia, then heart failure. They have the same odd bug bites on you. I am starting to think mosquitoes and whatnot are the cause," Hotaka explained to Miss C as she laid in bed, looking at the ceiling. "I hope they are in good hands now," Miss C said as she closed her eyes. Heart-stopping. Manami C died at 2:30 a.m., Chinatsu C died at 2:45 a.m., and finally Miss Mana C died at 3:20 a.m., Hotaka said with saddened eyes. "They were 13, 15, and 42 respectively," Hotaka said, looking down at the deceased forms of the females in the C family. "The 2 men in their family shall be saddened," Emmy said with sorrow in her face. "I will tell them the news. Emmy, watch the clinic and tell me if anyone's condition gets better, especially Naoki." Hotaka grabbed his sweater and headed out. Emmy looked down at Naoki, who was sleeping rather peacefully. "Mitsuo, hand me a soda here," Ryota sneered as Mitsuo gave him a diet soda. Another day with Ryota treating him like a house slave. "I will never understand how Eika chose you out of all the other men in Sotoba," Mitsuo said as he glared at the older man. "Well, Eika chose wisely. However, you parents chose a very poor choice in birthing you." Ryota smirked and Mitsuo's eye twitched. "Don't you dare say anything bad about my parents," Mitsuo screamed at the older man as Ryota grabbed Mitsuo's long brown hair. "Listen here, Buster. Eika is a perfect woman and you are the twerp who only exists to serve me when I visit her." Pitiful excuse for family. Mitsuo yelled in pain as Ryota pulled his hair. "Ryota sweetie, what's wrong?" Eika peeked into the room to see Ryota was now petting Mitsuo's head, and officially let his hair go as Mitsuo glared at the older man. "Mitsuo was telling me something funny." "Were you Mitsuo?" Ryota played the angelic boyfriend role his family gets fooled by too easily. "I'm going to Mikio's. I hope you have everything under control," Mitsuo said with anger for the brother-in-law he was left with. Mitsuo was walking along the dirt trail until he saw a funeral taking place. 3 coffins and Mitsuo's heart sank when he realized who the deceased were. Mitsuo saw Hikaru and his father, Mr. C, walking along with the coffins. Mr. C was crying while Hikaru held his head down, possibly holding back his tears. Michio was with him and patting his back to soothe him. "Hey Mitsuo." Mitsuo looked back to see Akihiro, Hiroko, and Mikio. All 3 soon stopped to watch the funeral. "Chinatsu, Manami, and Miss C are gone," Hiroko said. Her dark blue eyes were dull with sadness. "That illness killed them this morning, or so I heard," Akihiro said, watching the funeral people disappear into the forest to bury the C family. "That's sad. Poor Hikaru. I'm scared his heart wouldn't take this," Mikio said. Everyone worried about Hikaru and wondered if he would be fine at school tomorrow. "He has his father and Michio to keep him company. But even so, we should give him a proper farewell to his sisters and mother," Mitsuo said, scratching his head. "Mitsuo, why is the back of your head red?" Hiroko said with worry, and Mitsuo felt his head. "Ryota, you know, he pulled my hair when I was mad at him for disrespecting my family," Mitsuo said. His long brown hair had a bit of blood on it, mainly from how hard Ryota pulled it. "I am for sure getting a haircut soon," Mitsuo said, and Mikio laughed. "I don't know. Everyone knows you well for having long hair and a scar on the bridge of your nose." Mikio chuckled to himself and Mitsuo smiled. "There are many guys here who keep their hair long, but I guess I am one of the more well-known," Mitsuo said as Hiroko grabbed a wet towel out of her back and wet Mitsuo's hair, trying to get the blood out of it. "Hey, Mitsuo. Guys." Everyone looked to their right to see Kotone waving as she ran towards them with a face full of glee. "You wouldn't guess who I met last night." Everyone looked at her with a curious look. "Guessing from all your looks, you guys wanna know?" "It was this little girl whom my mother invited in the house. It was Mistress Inoshiki." Everyone gasped and looked amazed. "You mean Ko Inoshiki as in the new lady who moved in here?" Akihiro said with amazement in his face, and Kotone smiled that sweet smile. "Yeah, she was inviting my father to a dinner party. Strangely, my father isn't the most interesting of people. He is just the head of the library. Maybe she wants to talk to him about awesome learning things," Kotone said with happiness glimmering in her eyes. "I and Rika know too," Kotone added, and everyone laughed. knowing those circus girls would be some of the first picks to know information like this. They are the first to know a ton of information. Mikio smiled as he looked at a large tent the two set up to practice any circus-based projects, even hearing Rika announcing acts below Akihiro, Hiroko, Mikio, Kotone, and mostly you, Mitsuo. Everyone looked back to see Tokiko walking towards them, her little brother, Yutaka following her. Everyone had a nervous look towards Tokiko, but Mitsuo calmly walked up to her without any problem thanks to him getting to know a bit about her from last night. Hello Tokiko, I haven't seen you in a while Yutaka. Mitsuo smiled at them. Yutaka and Tokiko both had white hair with red streaks in it. The difference between the two was that Yutaka's eyes were lavender and Tokiko's eyes were a bright magenta. It's great to see you Mitsuo, you and I had a good time last night. Did you do it? Tokiko asked, and instantly Mitsuo knew Tokiko was talking about the letter to Tsuneo she wanted him to deliver. I did, it should be at his house now, Mitsuo said as he saw Tokiko smile with happiness. Thanks for making my big sis happy, Yutaka said, nodding happily as he looked at a love-struck older sister. I am still worried about this epidemic. Hotaka and Emi are trying to figure out its cause. Today, Etsujiro and Shihiro Yihara have been taken to the clinic by their parents, Hiroko said with a nervous tone. Etsu is that albino girl, right? The one with reddish-pink eyes and white hair and drill pigtails, Mitsuo asked as Akihiro nodded, starting to bite out of an apple that was kept in his pocket. Yup, she goes to our school but not in Mr. Aimu's class. She goes to Miss Nidaminiga's class, Akihiro replied, his mouth full of his apple. Shihiro is that one who always skips school. He is the boy who wears that white hoodie all the time, Hiroko said. Mitsuo remembered being scolded by him for hanging around his turf. I hope Emi and Hotaka find out the problem, Kotone said with a sad mutter. Everyone looked to see Kazuhiko Masuda hiding in some bushes. Kazuhiko? What is he doing? Mikio said as he looked at the 8-year-old, who was peeking through a hole in the wood of the Yuno family's fence. He wants to see Amy, Kotone said with a smile, and everyone giggled at Kazuhiko's affection for Amy Yuno, a girl in his class whom he had a massive crush on since preschool. Well, you couldn't blame him at all. Amy was pretty for a 3rd grader, having short, light blue hair clipped in barrettes and dark red eyes. She also had a sweet personality and tried to help everyone with their problems. Amy's parents were also very kind, her mother being a policewoman and her father a teacher at the Sotobian Elementary School. They knew how to handle problems and teach their daughter a few things about helping others in need. Kazuhiko must have been going over to see Amy to cure his grief over his older brother, Masayoshi's death. Masayoshi's death was hard on his family, Hiroko said as they seen the Yuno family invite him in once he was seen. Well, Ms. Yuno is a police officer, and one of the high-level ones too. A girl and boy walked towards them. Both were unknown to the students. Oh, sorry, I am Gina Kan and this is Rihai Scalva. We are new here, Gina said, holding Ri's arm, showing the two were possibly husband and wife or boyfriend and girlfriend. Are you one of the members of the Shiki family? Kotone asked, and the two strangers blinked in surprise. Oh no, we never even knew their names. We are part of a different group, a community perhaps. We are led by a girl, the leader of us known as Tsuneko Kirishiki, Ri said with a smile. Oh, are you a friend to Raiko? Mitsuo asked the strangers, remembering the time he met Raiko at the grocery store. Ah, you're the one Raiko told us about, Ri said with a kind smile and held out his hand. It's nice to meet you Mitsuo Onataga, Ri said, and Mitsuo smiled as they shaked. Oh, he is as polite as Raiko said too, Gina said with a kind giggle. So, is your Ran friend around too? Ri said, looking around the band of friends. No, she had work at the Inoshiki household. She is their maid after all. Ru and Gina held surprised looks after Akihiro told them about Ran. Then that means she is deaf. Never mind, you'll understand later, Gina said as she and Ru walked away, the couple holding hands as they walked down the dirt path. Well, that was certainly odd, Tokiko said while everyone looked at her, knowing that she was quite odd herself. Night fell and Ryota was walking towards a vending machine, smirking at his plan. I know Mitsuo and Eika's parents have been saving a bunch of money for Mitsuo's education for that fancy college in Tokyo. Ryota smirked and looked down to grab his soda pop. Once I get my hands on that money, I will quickly divorce Eika, Ryota said, hearing footsteps as he turned around. "Hey, who goes there?" Ryota grabbed a rock and found a strange girl walking down the road. Her red and black eyes focused on him. "Don't make me throw this at you," Ryota said as he glared at the girl. She looked up at him and smiled. "Hello Ryota," the girl said as she bit his arm. Ryota felt weak and dropped to the ground. Soon names ran through his head and he now remembered the girl's name, for she died just a while ago. "You're Chinatsu," Ryota muttered before collapsing on the dirt road. Chinatsu was nowhere to be seen. Chapter 8, Secrets of the Epidemic. Chinatsu looked at the small town of Sotoba. Her eyes glimmered in the darkness of night. "I'm sorry your sister and mother couldn't come back, but I am sure that was the price you had to pay." Hoeno Shiki whispered in her ear as Chinatsu turned to glare at the mistress. "I love Manami and mother, and you better watch your tongue because I shall rip it out if you say another word about them," Chinatsu said, wearing a white summer dress that's collar has been ruined by newly splattered blood from Ryota. "You watch yourself too Chinatsu. I can order Ran to drag you outside. She is a Jinru and you're but a mere Okigari, and I will watch you burn where you stand." Ko hissed. Chinatsu walked away, giving Ko another fierce flash from her eyes. "I am sorry for Ko's behavior, Ms. C." A young woman around 28 to 30 years old with red hair streaked with pale pink and very short walked towards her, her red and black eyes symbolizing she was a Okigari. "Sakura Gunma, is that your name?" Chinatsu asked the woman, who nodded her head in reply. "I am sorry Mistress Ko is so stern. She always is with newly risen Okigari," Sakura said with a shy and quiet voice. "How old are you Sakura?" Chinatsu asked, and Sakura stammered. "I am 30, I am basically 72 since I died," Sakura said with a saddened look to her face. "I hate myself," Sakura muttered, and Chinatsu tilted her head in confusion. "Why Sakura?" Sakura looked at Chinatsu after the question was fired. "I took many innocent lives. If I didn't, Mistress Ko grabbed my head and made sure my fangs sank into the flesh." Sakura looked up at the sky. The moon was steadily lowering as Sakura was heading back. Chinatsu looked sadly at the moon before following Sakura to Kanemasa. Mitsuo walked downstairs to see his mother reading a newspaper to see Hotako have an interview on the epidemic. "Mr. Ozaki has been struggling. I hope Ryota lives," Mitsuo's mother said as she was talking to her husband, who was eating breakfast before heading to work. Mitsuo peeked inside Ryota's room to see Eika was setting another blanket on the sick man. "Mitsuo, can you help me here?" Eika asked her younger brother, which Mitsuo walked towards Ryota and his sister. "Ryota has been sleeping for a long time. Can you call the clinic for me?" Eika said, and Mitsuo walked to hand the phone to his sister, glaring at Ryota. "Why does the royal jerk get everything? I know he is planning on something else and not love and affection." Mitsuo thought and looked at the sleeping form of Ryota. Mitsuo knew it was the same anemia that has been killing people. "I swear something wrong is going on in Sotoba." Mitsuo looked outside to see old lady Chika talking with her husband at "Oh, grandmother, you're getting worked up over nothing." Her grandson, Hideaki Nishimura, called only to get hit on the head with her cane. "Nonsense Hideaki, your old people lived on this planet longer than you have and you should come to terms with them," old woman Chika said as her husband stood up and looked at her seriously. "Chika, I side with Hideaki on this one. What if there is nothing going on? Just because there is an epidemic doesn't mean the Inoshikas are the cause," Atsuo told his wife as he helped Hideaki up on his feet. "You of all people should know about the stories that took place 50 years ago," Chika said. Atsuo looked at his wife with a stern gaze. "Nothing like that will happen again, Chika," Atsuo muttered as he held his wife's hands and led her inside, Hideaki following them while rubbing his head. Mitsuo remembered the files that he checked on with Tokiko and her friends. Remembering there indeed was something odd. He knew Chika was a bit crazy in her old age, but had a silly feeling she was correct. "Eika, I am going to Emi's house to see if a cure to Ryota's illness has been found," Mitsuo said to his older sister. Her light blue eyes held surprise as she smiled, thinking Mitsuo was trying to look out for her ill husband. "Of course Mitsuo, I will be right here if things get bad with Ryota," Eika said as she looked down at Ryota, who opened his eyes weakly to see the two. Mitsuo dashed off towards the clinic. Sanurai walked by with her brothers. "Mitsuo, where are you going?" Sanurai yelled after him and Mitsuo looked back to the clinic. "There is something I need to talk to Emi about." Mitsuo dashed. Sanurai and her brothers watched him run as they smiled. Mitsuo tries his best to help everyone, Sanurai whispered to herself. remembering times when he tried to help everyone in the village more than once. Emi looked at the files of previous signs of anemia. Some documented the same type of anemia from 50 years ago. Mitsuo caught something that I didn't. Emi played with a piece of her long green hair, looking through many files, some of which were badly destroyed or some left unfinished. A door opened and Emi turned to see Mitsuo and she smiled. I had a good feeling you would come back. She smiled as she walked towards her dear friend. Mitsuo was a good friend of Emi thanks to his parents being quite close to her family. Emi, about the anemia. Did anyone have any bites? Mitsuo asked the nurse. Emi looked at him with surprise. Of course, all of them had bites on the arm or neck. I suspected them to be from bugs, Emi said with a shocked face. Ryota had the same bites, and I also seen the same bites on the photos of the patients from 50 years ago. Emi looked down on the photos and seen Mitsuo was right. Shock filled her eyes. Remember what movie we went to see a while ago? Mitsuo asked Emi and she soon remembered. It was Attack of the Vampires, right? Emi said and Mitsuo nodded. What if the stories were true? Remember what happened when the woman in the movie got bit by Dracula? Mitsuo asked Emi. She fell sick with symptoms that looked similar to anemia. Emi's eyes were wide and instantly she and Mitsuo knew exactly what the problem was. So Toba has been overrun by vampires? Emi asked and Mitsuo nodded. If you look at the death count, it's not that hard to imagine, Mitsuo said, looking at the sleeping forms of Naoki and Anao Momoko Masuda, Masayoshi's mother. They say they see their relatives or friends in their sleep. Do you think they are vampires? Emi asked and Mitsuo looked at her. Perhaps. That means Chio, Masayoshi. Everyone who was confirmed dead may have rose from the grave. Mitsuo looked at the files. They certainly were providing evidence of odd supernatural problems. Shiki are back, Emi said, which Mitsuo looked at her with confusion. Shiki is the word for vampire in the village. It means corpse demon. Emi informed Mitsuo and also grabbed a book. It was written by Seishin Muro in the book of the same name. Emi showed Mitsuo the book and he took it and looked at it. It's a book about a man who ruins everything he touches and his brother who is loved by everyone. One day, the man killed his beloved brother who eventually rose as a Shiki and forever followed him. Mitsuo was interested in the summary that Emi explained. She smiled and handed the book to Mitsuo. Read it if you want. Mitsuo. Emi gave Mitsuo the book and he looked at it with guilt. But this is your book, Emi, Mitsuo said as she giggled. I read the book lots of times, enough to remember every word written. It's time for me to pass it on to someone else to read it. Mitsuo looked at the book and began to read. Chapter 9, A Shocking Hypothesis. It's been 2 days, Emi told Hotaka about a possibility for vampires, but he laughed at the thought all the way home. Mitsuo was almost done with the book. Shiki, interested all the way from the beginning to the end of the book. Seishin Muro I heard lived in the city now with a young girl. I should do some research on the guy. Mitsuo was about to go to the computer room when he heard a scream coming from Ryota's room. Ryota! Eika screamed and soon Mitsuo knew what happened. Ryota was dead. Mitsuo looked at the clock hanging above the kitchen sink and noticed it was 11:35 p.m. Hotaka always says the night times always bring death to those with anemia, Mitsuo said with an image of the files flashing and scenes of the Attack of the Vampires movie playing in his mind. Tomorrow I have to go to school. I will tell everyone something is going on, Mitsuo thought as he got a booklet of notes he collected and looked through them. Mitsuo started to walk to his room, bringing his booklet and the novel, Shiki, with him. Mitsuo grabbed 2 small bits of wood and began to tie them together to form a cross, which he nailed into his bedroom door for protection. That should keep them away for now, Mitsuo said as he began to study throughout the night. Mitsuo was looking through his booklet, looking through anything that he wrote down about vampires, or as they were preferred to be called, Shiki. Mitsuo, look at Yukiko, Kotone whispered to her good friend as he turned to see Tsuneo and her hugging. Mitsuo smiled. Looks like Tsuneo and Yukiko got the note. Mitsuo went back to reading while Mr. Aimu looked down at Mitsuo and smiled. What are you reading there, Mitsuo? Mitsuo looked at Mr. Aimu and smiled. I am studying for our non-fiction assignment, something about the anemia going around, Mitsuo said, and Mr. Aimu chuckled. Keep on studying hard, Mitsuo Netaga. Keep on studying, Mr. Imu said as he was talking to Miwa and Fumiko on their assignments, which were about the plant and animal life in Sotoba. Ran was reading a book. She had a book out in front of her and was constantly looking at different people, even giving an odd glance to Mitsuo which got him odd chills. Ran, and you haven't talked in a while, Mitsuo. Did you say something that offended her or something? Shoichi, Kyo's brother, asked Mitsuo, who shook his head. No, I haven't. I don't think she is avoiding me, Mitsuo said, looking at the ruffled-haired blonde. Well, something certainly had to happen, Mikio said as he talked behind Mitsuo. Mitsuo looked at the purple-haired young man. Reiko and were beside him. We are sorry about Ryota, Reiko said, twirling a piece of gold hair around her finger. It's fine. Me and him never liked each other anyways, Mitsuo said as he looked at who held a surprised gaze from her lime green eyes. Will the funeral be held tomorrow? Asked, and Mitsuo nodded, just wanting to solve the situation Sotoba was under. Tokiko was talking with Ran and Tsuneo was with her. Yoshikazu watched his good friend with his newly found love interest. The Inoshikas are odd people, always coming out during the night hours, Yoichi said with Satoshi beside him. But Masayoshi found a love interest in one of them before his death, Satoshi said with his hand scratching his dark blue hair. Chio met the Inoshikas before her death. I wonder what she said to them, Shoichi said with sorrow deep in his eyes. I heard that Yuki Hojo, Masayoshi's girl, kept visiting him late at night until his death. I wonder if she was heartbroken, said, twirling a piece of her red and orange highlighted hair. Yuki was one of the Inoshikas, wasn't she? Reiko asked, and everyone nodded. Vampires. Okuyagari. Shiki. Mitsuo looked at the novel and his notes and he looked with pure shock. I may sound crazy, but I think the Inoshiki are actually vampires, Mitsuo said out loud. Everyone looked at him with faces full of what the heck did you say? And are you drinking alcohol? Faces written all over their expressions. Okay, I heard a lot about the family, but that had to be the most ridiculous thing I ever heard someone say about them, Yoshikazu said with a laughing face. Well, if you think hard enough, it isn't that impossible, Tokiko said with Tsuneo holding her left hand. What do you know about vampires and epidemics? Moon Girl, Sora said, her hands on her waist as she had a challenging glance emitting from her gaze. Sora, don't be mean to Tokiko, Kumiko said as she tried to drag Sora's arm away from the moon-loving girl. We all know that Sue told me that Tokiko here is a spirit from the underworld to absorb our spirits. A reason so many are dead is because of her. Sora lashed out at Tokiko. The red and white-haired girl narrowed her magenta eyes at the dark aquamarine-haired girl. You all believe I am an evil woman. Before you know it, you all will believe that Kyo is a voodoo worshipper or Mitsuo becoming a drug addict. I shall tell you all, none of the deaths are my fault, Tokiko said as she grabbed her notebooks and backpack and, as soon as the bell rang, stormed out and made sure she was plenty far away from Sora. Mitsuo gathered his belongings and eventually found himself looking towards Tokiko's home, feeling sad that she was being blamed. Hi Mitsuo, wanna come along to see the Inoshiki family with me? Mitsuo looked behind him to see Ran, giving him a sinister smile and a narrowed gaze. No thanks Ran, I am going to do research, Mitsuo said as he looked back to see the slate-haired girl asking a girl from class 3-3, Yukimura to walk to the Inoshiki household. Mitsuo looked at the two walking towards Keimasa and instantly took a note. If Yukimura is sick or acting strange tomorrow, this will allow me to agree that my suspicions were correct. Mitsuo looked and saw Yukimura smiling, her big blue eyes and round glasses on her face. She was a definition of a nerd. She tied her long black hair in a single braid and wore barrettes to move her bangs to the right side. The only reason Mitsuo remembered Yukimura was because she attended and won last year's science fair, and also she shared the same classroom with Muko and Michio, Tokiko's friends. Tokiko, are you alright? Mitsuo looked back and saw Tokiko, fainted on the ground, breathing heavily and without a doubt, vampire bites on her neck. Tokiko was bitten. Chapter 10, Mitsuo's new partner and Inoshiki found. How did Tokiko get sick? Mitsuo looked up at her father, Yoshiaki Kei, a tall man with shaggy brown hair and mustache, looked down at Tsuneo. Mitsuo, and Kotone who brought Yukiko home. Yukiko's sick. Her younger brother, Yutaka Kai, ran down to see his sick sister. Yutaka looked almost identical to his older sister, having white hair streaked with red and, unlike Yukiko, has light lavender eyes. "My dear Yukiko," her mother, Suzu Kai, ran into the room and held her dear daughter. Suzu had long red hair and dark, jade green eyes. She looked like she almost had a heart attack when she soon figured that Yukiko had anemia. "She is ill. We need to take her to the clinic," Suzu said, looking down at her ill daughter. Mitsuo looked to see Kotone and Tsuneo staring at him. "Will Yukiko be fine?" Tsuneo asked Mitsuo, remembering Mitsuo has been visiting Hotaka and Ami from what he had heard. "I'm afraid not. This anemia kills the victim in 3 to 4 days. It killed Hotaru's sisters and mother, Ryota, Chio, and it will keep on attacking the village as long as it goes around," Mitsuo said, and looked at the bite markings on the back of Yukiko's neck and realized something odd. She was bitten sometime during the day. Mitsuo thought hard and was trying to remember how she would have gotten it until he realized one thing. The maid for the Shiki family is Ran, and for an odd reason, Mitsuo had to agree that somehow, somewhere, Ran was part vampire. But how can she safely move around during the day without being burned? Mitsuo thought to himself and suddenly decided there was something else about the anemia until he remembered the novel. Shiki. Jinra are a special type of Shiki, being able to move around during the day and eat normal food. Think of them as werewolves. The book played in his mind like a broken radio and instantly figured it out. Ran was a Jinru, and the only way to prove it was to watch her bite someone during class. "Yukimura, if she is sick tomorrow I will know," Mitsuo said as he watched Yukiko sleep in bed and walked home. The house was dark due to his family attending Ryota's funeral. Mitsuo stayed at home because he and Ryota never liked each other, and also Mitsuo believed Ryota wouldn't want Mitsuo to come a step near his funeral. "So, why are you not going to Ryota's funeral?" Yutaka asked Mitsuo. Yukiko's brother decided to keep Mitsuo company because both may lose someone close to them. For the both of them, it was Yukiko. "Yutaka, do you mind watching some classic horror flicks?" Mitsuo asked the white and red-haired teen, who smiled. "Those are my favorites." "What do you got, Mitsuo?" Yutaka said with a face glimmering with interest. "Vampire ones, not the gross Twilight crap, but you know, Count Dracula and all that," Mitsuo said as he pulled out a Dracula movie from the dresser, and Yutaka smiled. "That's fine by me," Yutaka said as they sat down to watch the films. Popcorn ready and the screen lit with the vampire movies playing. Mitsuo made sure to keep his notepad beside him to write down some facts each movie made. Mitsuo would watch Yutaka munching on popcorn and lying on his stomach, with lavender eyes lighten up with fascination. After the movies were done, Mitsuo collected much data for his notepad. Vampires are afraid of garlic, meaning that if people eat it and or wear it around the house, it would cause the vampire to not attack them. Mitsuo smiled at his data and looked at the second page. Vampires will burn in the sunlight, they need to rest in dark areas in order to live. Mitsuo turned to page 3 and began to read. Vampires must drink blood or else they would starve to death. Mitsuo smiled and saw Yutaka looking at the notepad. "Are you writing some vampire stuff, Mitsuo?" Yutaka gave Mitsuo a corny smile and laughed. Mitsuo lightly punched the younger teen's shoulder. "How old are you, Yutaka, for thinking that?" Mitsuo said as he looked at the white and red-haired boy. Pale lavender eyes looked at him with confusion. 14, turning 15 this Halloween. "My sister would be turning 18 October 25th, Yutaka declared. Mitsuo looked at him with wonder. "You and Yukiko share the same birth month?" Mitsuo asked, and Yutaka scratched behind his head and laughed. "It's a complicated thing. You don't want to know how many times I had to answer that question over and over to many different people." Yutaka smirked playfully. "Well, the notepad holds important information, and also may help us find out what caused Yukiko's illness and the deaths of many," Mitsuo said, and saw Yutaka instantly had his eyes wide as an owl when he mentioned his older sister's name. "You can save Yukiko?" Yutaka sat down beside Mitsuo and looked up at him, wanting to hear more about it. "Well, Yutaka, I will tell you this is true, but it may sound very fictional," Mitsuo said as he looked at Yutaka. His lavender eyes were huge and full of demand to know the answers to save his only sibling. I don't care, as long as Tokiko is alright. I will watch her all night long until she gets better, Yutaka said. Mitsuo smiled at Yutaka's courage and determination to stand by and care for his sister. Alright, here's the information. I believe that Sotoba is becoming infested with Okigari, vampires, or as what this novel and Watemi calls them, Shiki. Mitsuo looked at Yutaka, believing he would receive a laugh or a confused look, but instead, Mitsuo gained a face filled with determination and also a bit of a I knew it look in his face. I believe that. I swear I've seen Chio walking around even though she is dead. Also it would explain why my friend, Akito Miyamoto, had bites on his neck, Yutaka explained. Akito and Yutaka were good friends ever since preschool. They were almost never seen without the other. Is Akito alright? Mitsuo asked, fearing that the navy blue-haired teen was close to critical condition. He was doing okay when I last seen him, but he has been looking worse today, according to my mom, Yutaka said, looking down at his feet, scared that Akito wasn't going to make it. I am worried he won't make it, Yutaka said, looking at Mitsuo with a face of worry. But we could be able to save them if we keep them away from the Shiki, Mitsuo said as he rested his hand on Yutaka's shoulder and handed Yutaka his notepad. My notepad will have everything you need to save them, Yutaka. Cherish it, alright? Mitsuo handed the red notepad to Yutaka, who smiled with determination. I will copy the information so I could have one as well. I have an empty notebook I didn't use yet. Yutaka ran out to go to his house to fetch his empty notebook. Mitsuo followed him, knowing that it was dangerous for Yutaka to be outside at night all by himself with Shiki roaming around. Mitsuo grabbed his flashlight out of his jacket's pocket so he and Yutaka would see what was in front of them. We got to be careful, Mitsuo said to Yutaka right afterwards, hearing a snap of a branch coming from the forest on their right. Hello boys, are you done something you shouldn't, like interfering with my family? Mitsuo looked to see a slender woman in a kimono, brown hair tied in a bun, pale skin, and black eyes. Who are you? Yutaka said as he faced the stranger. You can call me Miss Koinoshiki, the mother of our sweet leaders. She and Mitsuru Inoshiki co-smirked as she looked at Mitsuo and Yutaka. Some more Shiki appeared, 3 of which Mitsuo instantly recognized: Yuki, Masayoshi, and Chio. Hiya Mitsuo, I want you to give those who didn't rise a hello for me, Chio said. Her eyes were black with red pupils and her attitude has become somewhat more aggressive and sadistic compared to her times as a human bully. Not now Chio, my dear. We will be sending them there unless they promise to stop their little game of Sherlock, Ko said. The other 4 Shiki beside them looked menacing except for one. She had dark red hair with rose pink streaks and wore a kimono that was red and gold with pictures of cherry blossom petals. Her black and red eyes held a story of sorrow. Sakura, chin up. I will leave the white and red-haired boy to you. After all, Ran got his sister, Ko said to the satin Shiki who looked at her leader with fear. If only I had the choice, Sakura whispered, looking at the ground, as if she wanted a black hole to materialize right there so she could hide from Ko. Mitsuo, do as she says. She'll kill you. Masayoshi yelled out to his friend and Mitsuo could see the fear in Masayoshi's undead eyes. Yuki was rubbing his back and was sharing the same expression. Mitsuo, please. Yuki chimed in and shared the worry with him. Mitsuo then realized, Yuki truly loved Masayoshi and was sent by Ko to kill him. Yuki and Masayoshi were holding hands and they both shared their frightened expressions. Ah, Yuki my dear, is this true? One of my prized Shiki, the one who matched heartlessness with Shig and sheer intelligence with Midori, is in love with a fellow Shiki and is showing sympathy and begging for a human's life to be spared. How ridiculously entertaining. Ko laughed and afterwards glared at the Shiki couple, her red pupils revealing themselves. Now listen here star-crossed lovers, I will get Ran to drag you 2 into the sunlight tomorrow morning if you both don't follow orders. Ko bared her fangs at the 2 who looked at her with complete fear. Remember children, this village shall be ours for the taking. All of it, Ko said with a cackle as a large, bulky male Shiki smirked, ready to attack when Ko gives the orders. So was a female Shiki with light blue hair styled in drill pigtails, Aradakimura and Shigaibuka. May you keep an eye on these reckless boys. If they don't stop interfering with our business, kill them, Ko said as she walked towards Kane Masa, Sakura, Yuki, Chio, Masayoshi, and a few Shiki followed the leader. "We will have fun messing with you punks," Arata said, cracking his knuckles while Shig looked at her partner. "Careful, Arata, we should take pleasure in tormenting them before finishing them off. At that point, they would be begging to be killed." Shig giggled, and immediately, Mitsuo knew she had to be a Commander Shiki and one of the most violent-minded ones. "Us Shiki are rather sensitive when it comes to foul brats like you two, always sneaking and sticking your noses into places it shouldn't belong. How would you like it if that were you?" Shig played around, swiping the notepad swiftly from Yutaka's grasp and started looking through the pictures. "Hey, give that back." Mitsuo ran towards Shig only for Arata to stop Mitsuo with his hands. "Let the lady do her business, little guys." Arata smirked as Shig read. "Interesting finds, very interesting." Shig smirked as she was starting to tear the pages rapidly, one by one. Yutaka dashed towards the horrible female until she kicked Yutaka in the gut. Yutaka clenched his stomach in pain. "Now, we shall make sure no one will know how to demolish our rapidly growing numbers." Shig laughed maniacally and Arata followed. "Remember, Busters, we will always be watching you," Shig said before she and Arata vanished into the forest. The only things Yutaka and Mitsuo seen were their red pupils before disappearing completely. "Yutaka, are you alright?" Mitsuo helped the younger teen up and Yutaka had tears streaming down his eyes. "They are trying to kill Akito and Yukiko. They shall not get away with this," Yutaka said before coughing some blood on the dirt path. "Are you alright?" Mitsuo looked behind him to see Raiko and Gina, the two strange women running towards them. It was Shiki and her group of followers, Yutaka explained as Raiko was helping him up. "We saw, they are Shiki, aren't they?" Mitsuo and Yutaka had their eyes wide. "How did you know?" Yutaka asked the pale aqua-haired woman. Gina looked at Raiko and then back at them. "Well, we cannot keep our little secret any longer it seems," Gina said as she looked at Yutaka and Mitsuo. "We are Shiki." "Actually, Jinru," Raiko said, finally spilling the beans. Sunako sat on a velvet chair. The chair was torn at points and had drink stains from the many years it was used, but a chair was still a chair and Sunako was just happy to be sitting on it. Sunako heard the cabin door open up. The cold night air whooshed into the room and Sunako was greeted with her faithful Jinru, Raiko and Gina, who had a smile on their faces, smiles that made Sunako quite curious. "Gina, Raiko, what's with the smiling?" Sunako asked, sipping blood from her wine glass. It reminded her of the good days with Seishiro and Chizuru before Seishiro was burned and Chizuru was staked. "The little Sherlock Holmes who is trying to discover the new Shiki group will be visiting us." Sunako, the kid Mitsuo Nechiga and a boy named Yutaka Kai. Sunako's black eyes went wide. Sunako never thought the boy would consider joining them in their fight against the Inoshiki family. "Why, that is surprising." Sunako heard a voice behind her to see it was Seishin who just walked in. Ever since those 50 years ago, Seishin never left Sunako's side no matter what. "Is everyone heading to bed, Raiko?" Sunako asked the orchid-haired Jinru woman. Raiko winked and smiled. "I gave the job to Ru. He should be back by now," Raiko said looking at the clock. Sunako did too to see it was 4:35 a.m. The sun would come up in about a few more hours. Sunako was more of an older sister-like figure and cared so much for her Shiki, too scared of what would happen to them if they were staked or burned. The door opened up and everyone gazed to see Ru arrive with a peculiar young lady behind him that Sunako never seen before. "Ru, who is this?" Sunako asked. Thr girl was pale-skinned with long, whitish blue hair tied in a loose ponytail, having two sky blue bands at the end. She had light, baby blue eyes that nearly looked white, but she wasn't blind. She wore a beautiful, gothic Lolita dress that looked as if it suited the winter and fall seasons as it was October. "Sunako, this young woman demanded your presence," Ri said as he allowed the mysterious young girl to walk towards Sunako. Sunako could see that this gothic Lolita fashioned girl was 15 from the look of her face and how her body shape looked. The girl was also around 4'6". "Who are you?" Sunako asked as she got up out of her chair and walked towards the Lolita girl. "I am a traveler, a mysterious traveler known as Kurayami. I was here to address your current situation." Sunako Garashiki. Sunako's hollow eyes widened. How did Kurayami know her name? Sunako looked at the other Jinru in the room to see. Even Rei was surprised. Not even with his big mouth he didn't tell Kurayami anything about her last name. How did you know my name? Sunako asked with Kurayami giving a mysterious gaze towards Sunako. I know about you. I am older than you, I presume? Kurayami asked Sunako, which Sunako looked at the mysterious Lolita. I may look 13, but I really am 150. I am a Shiki, Sunako said to Kurayami, who smirked. I may look like a 15-year-old girl, but I am a Jinru of 200 years old. Sunako gasped. Kurayami clearly surpassed Sunako in age, and possibly knowledge. I know about the Inoshiki, you, and other Shiki groups. I've been here longer than many and I wander forever, seeking someone I can call a family. I lost one so many years ago and still want one. I know that's the reason you gather Shiki, is to make up a family, Kurayami said and looked down at Sunako. I ran away from my hometown after my parents and siblings died, and I abandoned my name and replaced it with the name I now hold dear, Kurayami said, and Sunako decided to talk into much deeper and further manners. Why did you come here, Kurayami? Are you a spy from the Inoshiki family or are you on our side? Kurayami turned her back and started to walk out the door before stopping and looking back at Sunako and her friends. I am on neither side, Sunako, but I will tell you I don't approve of the Inoshiki's plans, so consider me an ally until further notice. Sunako and company watched as Kurayami closed the door once she was outside. Kurayami was now joining the fight. Chapter 11, Mitsuo and Yutaka, meet our allies. Jinru, Yutaka asked, facing Gina and Raiko with eyes that demanded more detailed answers. Yes, Jinru, we are a type of Shiki, more werewolf-like. Mostly we have a powerful sense of smell and we are fine during the day. We can eat normal food but need to drink blood to activate our power, Raiko explained. Mitsuo looked at amazement. So this was a Jinru. Then that means that Ran is one, Mitsuo said. Gina nodded in response. Ru is one too. We live in a community made entirely up of Shiki and we are led by Sunako Garashiki and Sia Shinmuro, Gina said. Her light green eyes were having a red tint to them. Why are you here then? Mitsuo asked Raiko and Gina. The two women smiled and winked at them. We are here to stop the Inoshiki family from converting Sotoba into a Shiki village, Gina said with a determined smile as she looked up at Kaimasa, the home of the Inoshiki family. Our Lady, Sunako once tried to do that, resulting in many deaths to her previous Shiki, including her adopted mother Chizuru. She now wants to right the wrongs she has caused in the past and wishes to stop the Inoshiki family from threatening your village, Raiko explained in further details. Yutaka and Mitsuo gasped in awe. We would love to introduce our community to you. Maybe if you can come over tomorrow night we will send Rit to pick you boys up, Gina said as she winked at them. Wait, are your Shiki also threatening the village too? Yutaka asked Gina and Raiko, who giggled. Oh no, we became close partners with a hospital near Sotoba who gives us blood transfusion packets to satisfy their bloodlust, Raiko said as she and Gina walked away, disappearing into the night. Yutaka and Mitsuo sat down in Yukiko's room. The dim red light lit the room as Yukiko was struggling to survive. Yukiko, get well soon, Yutaka said to his older sister, although she couldn't hear him thanks to her sleeping. He could see a faint smile on her face. I heard Hara Yukimura, Chio's friend, is sick, Yutaka said, and Mitsuo looked down, feeling sorry for Hara. Hara was Chio's only friend in the village, normally never being mean to anyone and was never truly accepted by many villagers due to her odd choice in fashion. Chio became Hara's friend because they shared a similar taste in fashion, and plus, Hara made clothes and it was possibly 100% that the clothes that Chio wore were made by her friend. I wouldn't be surprised if Chio bid her so Hara would be by her side forever, Mitsuo said. Yutaka nodded in agreement. Hera always was known for her fashion, like old eyes, and always styled her lavender hair in fancy curls. I wonder if she too will rise as a Shiki, Yutaka said, looking down at Yukiko's weakened state. The color to her face was close to fading. Many are still sick at the clinic and who knows how many have been sent to a hospital, Mitsuo said, remembering seeing all the sick people that Hotaka had to care for when he was looking through the files. I heard that Momoko Masuda, Masayoshi's mother, has passed not long ago. I wonder if she would rise. Her family was terribly devastated, mostly her husband, Yutaka said. Mitsuo's eyes were widened with surprise. There is no doubt that Masayoshi possibly bid her so she could rise with him, Mitsuo said, remembering something about the torn-up notepad said something like, 1 out of a few people will rise up as a Shiki. It depends on relations or something with your blood. Mitsuo knew that if Masayoshi rose, there is a great chance that Momoko would too, as she is his mother. Also their siblings could rise if Masayoshi gets a hold of them too, Yutaka said. Mitsuo and Yutaka felt defeated. What if Yukiko would not rise as a Shiki and stayed deceased? Mitsuo clenched his fists and sprouted a determined face. Tomorrow, I am going to see Raiko, and Gina. They may be Shiki, but I have a feeling they are the only options for allies we got. None of the other villagers would help, and Hotaka needs Emi so she can't fight. All I want to know is one thing though, Mitsuo said as he held his hand out to Yutaka, who gazed at it with his pale lavender eyes and looked up. And Mitsuo, will you help me out, Yutaka? Mitsuo beamed just as Yutaka replaced his despair-filled face with a much more determined and proud one and took Mitsuo's hand. If I could help friends and families with situations like Yukiko, of course I will fight for Yukiko and the rest of my family, even if my life is on the line. Yutaka held a bright smile on his face as Yutaka and Mitsuo awaited darkness, the time Gina and Raiko would arrive. Lamppost lights flickered in the darkness as Raiko and Gina were walking on the hard and cold pavement with their new ally, Kurayami, who wanted to see the allies they picked up. Gina and Raiko were still a little suspicious of Kurayami. The gothic Lolita-dressed girl appears one night, says she would be their ally. They tell her about their plans to rid the Inoshiki family, and yet Kurayami doesn't say anything about her own motives. I am not sure if we should trust her completely, Raiko said in her mind as she gazed back at Kurayami, who was deathly silent throughout the entire time they'd been walking. Gina poked her spacing friend's shoulder and pointed, showing that they have already arrived at Yutaka's house while Raiko was thinking about Kurayami. Gina, Raiko, these boys you've gathered, do they know enough about our species to eliminate the Inoshiki family from Sotoba? Kurayami asked with a monotone voice. Yes they do. We believe they are the only ones who are capable of helping us, Gina said, her jade green eyes focusing on Kurayami's cloudy blue ones. Gina and Raiko soon watched Kurayami walk towards the house and placed the palm of her hand on the wooden surface, gently scratching the wood with her long, fake red nails. This was a recently rebuilt house. The latest was 20 years old. I suspect that Yutaka was living here for the majority of his life, from newborn to now, Kurayami said. Her pale gaze faced the house and looked back at Raiko and Gina. Let's go see them. I have yet to meet the two, Kurayami said as she walked around the house in order to go to the entrance. Raiko and Gina sighed and followed Kurayami, who found the door and looked up at a sign that said welcome in kanji. Kurayami walked to the front steps and stopped due to the invisible force field that Shiki and Jinru see, which means she had to get an invitation from Yutaka or anyone in order to get inside. Raiko stepped in front and knocked on the door, hoping that Yutaka was still away. The sun just set and they knew back at the resting place for the Shiki, they would be waking up. The door opened to see a middle-aged woman with dark red hair and a groggy look on her face. What is it? The woman asked. Her eyes had bags underneath them and she looked as if she would collapse on the floor at any moment. You're Sasuke, aren't you? Gina asked the sleepy-faced woman, who nodded slowly in a tiresome manner. I was up all night and day for my shift at the office. Everyone is dropping like flies with this illness that it has been left with me and a few others that are still in perfect health to work, Sasu said as she tried to focus her eyes on the three figures in front of her. Is it fine if we come in? We are friends of Yutaka and Mitsuo's, Raiko asked, and Sasu nodded and looked at the orchid-haired woman. Come on in. If you need me I will be asleep in my room. I'll be up later on to check on Yukiko though, Sasu said as she drowsily walked to her room. Raiko, Gina, and Kurayami stared after her, worried. I wonder if the office employees were attacked by Ko's Shiki, Raiko said with a worried glimpse in her eyes. I wouldn't be that surprised, Kurayami said. Her pale blue eyes wandered as she examined the house. Yutaka, Mitsuo, Gina called until she heard the sound of people running and soon seen them down the hall. Gina, Raiko, Mitsuo said as he smiled at the two Jinru women who smiled happily. Who's that? Yutaka said. His lavender eyes were wide as he stared at Kurayami. This is a new ally, Kurayami, who is a fellow Jinru who arrived last night to aid in exterminating the Inoshiki family from Sotoba, Gina explained, and they watched as Kurayami extended a hand out to the boys. It's a pleasure to meet you both, Kurayami said, and watched as Mitsuo shook her hand and then Yutaka. Wow, her skin has a normal temperature. Are you sure she is undead? Yutaka asked as Raiko and Gina giggled. All Jinru have normal body temperatures. We don't refer ourselves as being undead, more like transformed is what we prefer, Gina said as she explained to Yutaka about Jinru. Kurayami smiled faintly as she looked down at Yutaka and soon her eyes trailed towards Yukiko's room, where Yukiko was slowly dying from anemia. Your sister. She was bitten by Ran, the sole Jinru of the Inoshiki family, Kurayami muttered as she slowly frowned. Yeah, we think they might have bitten a girl named Yukimura-ki, Mitsuo said, remembering Ran taking Yukimura to meet the Inoshikis. She was perfectly fine when we saw her exit Kainmasa, Gina said with confusion in her eyes. They must have spared her so no one would get too suspicious, Kurayami said, realizing that would be the case as Chio went to Kainmasa and caught anemia. I guess it is time for you to meet our community. Don't worry, our Shiki will not harm you unless we declare you a threat towards us, Gina explained as she and the other two began to walk. Yutaka and Mitsuo began to follow. Mitsuo and Yutaka began to walk, getting slightly curious and wished to know more about Kurayami. Kurayami, how old are you? Yutaka asked the Jinru girl who looked behind her to see him. 15 physically, 200 in reality, Kurayami said. She watched as both Yutaka and Mitsuo sped up in order to talk to her some more. Who are your family? Yutaka asked and saw Kurayami started to tremble as she talked. I had a little sister, 2 brothers, my mother and father, my grandfather, and my aunt and uncle who lived with me. Yutaka and Mitsuo saw some tears escaped Kurayami's eyes but she quickly wiped them off. My sister was named Rina. My brothers were named Hideaki and Kiru. My aunt and uncle were Masashi and Mitsuki. My mother and father were named and Naomi. And my grandfather, who was the head of the family, was named Toshiaki, Kurayami said as she looked at Yutaka and then Mitsuo. Can you tell us your story, Kurayami? Mitsuo asked the Lolita, who instantly froze and quickly came up with an answer. No, I'm sorry, but I can't do that, Kurayami said as she quickly sped up so she was near Gina and Raiko. Is your name really Kurayami? Mitsuo asked, wanting to know if that name was the name her parents gave her. No, my real name is left behind, only I know it and I refuse to give it to anyone but myself, Kurayami said. She wished she could forget the pain she suffered through those painful years of traveling. I'm sorry, I just can't. It brings back many memories that I wish I could forget, Kurayami said, feeling the cold October air nipped at her face like a hungry sparrow. It's fine if you don't want to tell us, Mitsuo said with a disappointed smile, but he understood if Kurayami didn't want to tell anyone. The Shiki's rest place is here, Gina said as they stopped at a very huge but seemingly abandoned log cabin that must have been used years ago as a campground. Wow, it looks like no one was here for a long time, Yutaka said as Raiko nodded. It's been abandoned long ago. The hospital owners who allied themselves with us to stop the Inoshiki family bought this land and allowed us to live here until the family was cleared out, Raiko explained. Mitsuo was surprised but soon smiled as he saw Raiko's enthusiastic smile and the determination shining in her eyes. One question for you boys, are you ready to meet your allies? Gina asked as she looked at Yutaka and Mitsuo. Her eyes were now black with red pupils, same with Kurayami and Raiko. Yes, both Mitsuo and Yutaka said as they watched the doors fly open. Red pupils shined in the darkness of the cabin. Chapter 12, Meet the Vampires. What happened? Ryota awoke and inside a coffin his eyes widened in complete fear. What the heck is this? Ryota scratched at the wooden surface madly, realizing he was wearing white funeral robes for the deceased and was surrounded in dead flowers. Hey, get me out of here. I am not dead. Anyone hear me? Ryota screamed but his voice was rather raspy as he realized something was off. He couldn't breathe. His lungs stopped working along with many other organs after his death. What am I? Ryota whispered to himself as he heard the nails of the coffin being ripped off and stared at a young man, possibly around Mitsuo's age by the looks of it. Hello Ryota, how are you feeling? The young man said, his black and red eyes staring at the older man. Who are you? Ryota said, wondering who this odd man was. I am Yashido Achibana, one of the high-ranked soldiers for the Inoshiki family. At your service. The young man bowed and Ryota instantly noticed the man was wearing steel-plated armor, possibly a knight in his past life. Ignore the fact you can't breathe and things should go along smoothly from here on out, Yashido said with a smile, his black and red eyes gleaming in the moonlit night as he and Ryota made their way to their next destination. What the heck is wrong with me? Ryota tried to say, but his voice was scratchy and sounded like nails on a chalkboard. You can't breathe. Ignore this fact and you will be able to speak, Yashito said, and took Ryota to the large mansion of Kainmasa. Yashito knocked on the large doors and smiled when a small voice replied, "Who is there?" A girl said as she giggled childishly. "It's Yashito. May I come in, Shika?" Yashito asked in a very polite manner as the voice giggled. Of course. The doors swung open to reveal Shika. She was just a little girl, long light green hair and eyes that were black and red like Yashito's. She was very young, maybe around 6 years old. "Hello, I am Shika Gensai of the Inoshiki family." Shika waved politely as she skipped joyfully back inside Kainmasa while humming what sounded like "It's a Small World" after all from the Disneyland attraction. "Ah, Yashito my boy, has our sleeping beauty awoken?" A tall woman with brown hair tied in a bun and black eyes appeared before them, wearing a graceful kimono and walked like she was on a fashion show. "Madam Ko Inoshiki, Ryota has rose and he is to be one of us." Yashito bowed before Ko with much higher respect. Ryota could feel the chilly air around her. This woman was to be respected and obeyed, and if this wasn't met with expectations, she may cast you out or kill you. "Ah, you are Ryota Miyamoto, the brat's stepbrother." Ko smirked as she had a nasty plan digging up inside her head as she seen Ryota bow before her. "Madam Inoshiki, is there anything you need me to do?" Ryota said as Ko smiled. "We shall begin your training, sweetie." "Lots of training." Ko smirked as she led them into Kainmasa. The gates closed behind them. Black and red eyes gleamed as Mitsuo and Yutaka were close to Raiko, Gina, and Kurayami. "Are these guys our allies?" A Shiki with long hair tied in a ponytail who wore a standard female school uniform smiled with glee as she tried to get a better look at them. "Yes they are." "Where is Madoka?" Raiko said as another girl with a standard female uniform and long, styled purple hair appeared. "I am right here." "Me and Dar never separated." Madoka smiled cheerfully. "Wow, they are a lot more cooler than what I imagined." A young girl, possibly around 10 to 13 years old, appeared and smiled. "Oh Etsuko, you are rough at times." A man walked towards them and examined the boys carefully. "Are you done checking them out, Masa?" a young woman asked, itching to check the boys out herself. "Alright Cho." "Alright," Masa said as he beckoned the other Shiki to come over. "There are so many. Can someone introduce them to us?" Yutaka said as Cho smiled. "Where are our manners?" "Of course, I am Cho Oju and the man over there is Masa Akamitsu." Cho introduced Masa and herself as started to talk. "I am Tadashi and that is my best friend in the whole world, Madoka Irizawa, and the girl there is Etsuko Yukayo." Madoka and Etsuko waved politely at Mitsuo and Yutaka. "I am Junmano, one of the children here." "There are my friends Michi Hidaka, the girl, and there is Hiso Fujiwara, Ryoki Kuchi, Kazuki Yui, and Jiro Kono." Jun smiled as he ran off to play with his friends. "I am Hikiro Jukano and that old woman there is my friend, Itami Osami. She can go a little loopy and silly at times thanks to her age, but she tells great stories." Hikiro smiled as he saw Itami sewing something nice. "I am what you may call the nurse around here in case anything goes wrong. I am Ayaka Ranuma." "You also had a friend named Ayaka, right? So if that's the case, call me Aya." Aya smiled and politely shook hands with Mitsuo and Yutaka. "I am Hajime Saiko. These are my good friends, Datsuo Sugiyama, Dakara Sato, Norio Goto, and Katsuro Ono." Hajime smiled as he saw his good friends waving at them. "We should also receive an introduction. My name is Sayuri Doi." Mitsuo smiled and asked her something. "We have a friend back home that is named Samiri. Can you give us a nickname like Ayaka did?" Mitsuo asked the woman who giggled. Of course, call me Saya if things get complicated," Saya said as she walked off. "My friends, I am Satoshi Nomura, but I think you had a friend named Satoshi. Rika tells us these things." "Call me Sato. That is my girlfriend there, Yumeko Nishibeppo." Yumeko walked up to Sato and smiled. "I am Ryoko Sakurai, and these people are the head Shiki who keep everything in order. They are Haruki Toriai, Yudaitaku, Isamu Date, Seiboru Kasa, and finally Izanagi Kata at your service." Ryoko smiled happily. "That's all we have, although we will introduce you to Seishin and Tsuneko one day. They are our leaders," Saya said with a pleasant smile. "Why do you all want to help the village out? Surely you want to do the same as the Inoshiki family is doing?" Mitsuo asked the Shikas and they looked at him. "Tsuneko wants to pay for her actions over 50 years ago. She felt bad for the people who she took lives from, and now that the Inoshiki are threatening Sotoba, She feels this is the proper way to pay up for her actions. Raiko said with sadness. She had the same plan and it failed. She lost a family and the other Shiki along with it. It was best that she wanted to make sure to pay up and so that the Shiki who were killed did not die in vain. Gina informed some more. She even lost her adopted mother and father. She even has nightmares of being staked herself or even seeing the deceased Shiki yelling at her, cursing her, saying it was all her fault. She feels their spirits would be at ease if she did this favor. Kurayami mentioned further. May I see the new boys? Itami walked towards Mitsuo and Yutaka to get a closer look at them. I see great potential in you all. Itami muttered quietly as confusion struck Mitsuo. Why? What potential? Mitsuo asked Itami. She stood and smiled at him. I used to be a spirit girl when I was alive. I could sense bits and pieces of the future. It was a reason I accepted my fate when I caught a deadly disease and was saved by Tsuneko. I now thrive as one of the oldest Shiki, Itami explained. Yutaka and Mitsuo stood and stared at Itami with wonder. Her black and red eyes gleamed in the darkness of the shelter. I sense that your sister, Yutaka Tokiko, is now dead, Itami said, and Yutaka had his eyes widen. No, Tokiko isn't dead. Yutaka ran outside. Mitsuo stared as friend ran. Kurayami ran after him and Raiko looked at Mitsuo. It's not safe to wander out at night alone. You must comfort him every step of the way. Mitsuo stared at Raiko and soon ran after his friend with Kurayami. Mitsuo knew the way to Yutaka's house despite being in a large forest at night and quickly hoped that Yutaka knew his way home. Mitsuo and Kurayami looked to their right to see a horrific scene. Yutaka was on the floor, his body being stepped on by the brute Arata, while Ran and Shik watched with violently hungry eyes. In Ran's arms, was a deceased Tokiko. Chapter 13, Bonus Chapter, The Three Teens Dream. So, have you heard that there is something going on in the forest, right? A girl with red hair and light amber eyes told her friends. A girl and a boy. Shino, we don't know what's out there. What if one of the wild dogs get to us? The girl with long wavy brown hair and pale blue eyes said to Shino. I got to agree with Kyoko. My father said many wild dogs have been roaming the woods lately. The boy who had scraggy dark green hair and light yellow eyes muttered. Tatsuzo, Kyoko, we will be fine, Shino exclaimed as she went on ahead. The night sky still lingered on since winter was slowly approaching. Shino and her group were in Mitsuo's school but in a different class. Their full names were Shino Kusai, Kyoko Iga, and Tatsuzo Amari. Walking deep into the woods, Shino's heart for adventure and wonder opened up. It was a thing she had since a young child. Shino wished to know what the world was like outside of Sotoba, the village she lived in since her birth. Come on guys, we need to see the city lights, Shino said as Kyoko and Tatsuzo were trying to keep up with their excited friend. Wait for us Shino, Kyoko said as she was gasping. The hilled areas were steep and hard to climb, a reason not many people wish to visit Sotoba. Tatsuzo huffed as he climbed. He was born with a poor heart condition and knew this would slow him down a bit. Guys, I see the city, Shino yelled down to her friends which Tatsuzo walked up and looked at the city as he was beside Shino. Amazing. Tatsuzo smiled as he looked at the city with awe. Wait a minute, where is Kyoko? Tatsuzo noticed Kyoko wasn't here. She would have been here before him, so where was she? Maybe she went home. There is an old forest trail right near us that leads to our houses, Shino said, and Tatsuzo gave a slightly worried smile, hoping she did go home. You know, we should really head home before our parents freak out on us for being out late. Shino smiled as she took Tatsuzo's arm towards the trail. Hey, Tatsuzo. Shino suddenly stopped and faced her friend. Yeah? What is it Shino? Tatsuzo tilted his head with confusion until she gave him a kind smile. When we graduate, do you want to run away with me to explore the world together? Tatsuzo's eyes were widened as Shino asked him. Of course he would live to go with her. I would love to go with you. It would be a once-in-a-lifetime event. Tatsuzo smiled as he and Shino hugged each other. Thank you, Tatsuzo, Shino whispered to her friend. Thank you, Shino, Tatsuzo replied as he and Shino walked home together, not realizing red eyes were peering at them. By the creature's feet, was Kyoko. Chapter 14, Kurayami speaks. Tokiko's death. How could you? Yutaka screamed at Arata, Ran, and Shigu laughed at Yutaka. Yeah. Well, direct orders from Ko says she may become a Jinru and thus a strong ally. Ran smirked as she looked at Tokiko's deceased body being carried by Shig. Don't worry, we'll take great care of her. Shig smiled as she stared at Yutaka with hungry eyes. Let's leave this off as a warning. Next time you meddle, This is what will become of your family." Ran smiled and then gave a cackling laughter that filled the forest. Even the crows flew away, cawing after hearing it. Kurayami stepped out from the bushes with Mitsuo and both ran towards the Shiki. "Leave him alone." Mitsuo ran at the Shiki. His fists were raised, ready to punch Harada off of Yutaka. "Ah, if it isn't Squirty!" Mitsuo again. Ran smirked as she dashed towards him. Mitsuo tried to avoid her attacks but he was too late as she grabbed his fists and kicked his stomach, sending Mitsuo to the ground. "Ran, how could you do this to me, to us?" Mitsuo struggled to get up only to cough blood. Kurayami leaned down to help him up. "It's useless to talk sense into her now, Mitsuo. She never was a friend, only a spy." Kurayami's words stabbed into Mitsuo's heart. How could he ever trust anyone else again? Sharp. "Oh well, I have duties to fulfill and killing you all is one of my top priorities." Ran cackled as she and her lackeys walked away, carrying Yukiko's body. The next morning, Hotaka Ozaki was filling out a death certificate, recently for the young boy, Akito Miyamoto. He recently died last night and Hotaka felt like he was going crazy. Emi was gone to deliver the sad news to his family. The nurses and doctors at the clinic were shaken by the death toll so far. The door opened behind Hotaka and he instantly seen a girl with amber-colored eyes and red hair. She was from high school. "Hey, Dr. Hotaka Ozaki, has Kyoko come by here? I know she is a nurse and all but I cannot find her," the girl said. "You're Shino Kusai, right?" Hotaka asked. The girl nodded. "Yes, I am Kyoko's best friend and we've been that way since kindergarten." "Have you seen her?" Shino asked with her eyes wide and with worry. "No, I haven't. She is a loyal nurse here and hopefully she would turn up. If not, I will send a search party for her," Hotaka said to Shino, which made Shino smile a little. "Thanks so much, doctor." "Thanks." Shino walked out, almost bumping into Emi, who returned from the Miyamoto family's home to give them the news of Akito. "So, how did it go, Emi?" Hotaka asked the green-haired nurse. "Better than most. They at least said their goodbyes to Akito the last time they visited him," Emi said. Her eyes were getting wet from tears. "Hotaka, we need to find a cure, fast," Emi said, clenching the cloth of her skirt roughly. "I know that. I'm just doing what I can." Hotaka snapped at Emi. Emi backed away, her back against the wall. Hotaka realized his temper was getting out of control. The death toll in Sotoba was too much for him to bear. Even Yamari and Mizobe residents were taking notice. "I'm sorry, Emi. I am terribly sorry. It's just that Naoki is sick. People are coming in every day with this illness, and it feels like every time the sun starts to set, I have to file a death certificate." Hotaka ran his fingers through Emi's soft green hair, almost forgetting to ask Emi about Kyoko. "Emi, have you seen Kyoko lately?" Hotaka asked his good friend, who stood with a puzzled expression. "Yeah, she was working on helping Naoki recover last night." "Why ask?" Emi answered, and Hotaka gave her the grim news. "Shino came by and asked if she was here. Kyoko hasn't returned ever since she left the clinic last night. According to Shino, she could have gone missing," Hotaka explained, watching Emi's eyes slowly open wide. "That's a effort. We need to gather a search party," Emi yelled. Hotaka placed his hand on her shoulder. "Not yet, she could be late or out to do something. We cannot rush in case of false alarm," Hotaka said, and Emi looked down at her feet. "I'm sorry, it's just I really worry about everything going on lately. The deaths in Sotoba, some in Yamari and Mizobe too. Tomobiki has also been having problems. And finally Kyoko's now missing and she was one of the hardest working nurses I have ever seen," Emi explained. Hotaka realized just now how close of friends Kyoko was with Emi. They always worked side by side. Let's also say that the people who moved, the Inoshikas, are awfully weird. Even Mitsuo has a vampire obsession now. He is going around saying vampires exist. Hotaka was struck by the word vampire and instantly froze. Anemia, bug bites, fast death, heart failure. Oh my gosh. Hotaka froze and Emi was confused. Hotaka, is everything okay?" Emi saw Hotaka freeze with his mouth gaping open as if he saw something ungodly disturbing. "I think if the symptoms are correct, Mitsuo isn't that far off," the answer. Hotaka aged quietly and looked at Emi. "I need to know where he is," Hotaka said as he gripped Emi's shoulders. "Of course," Emi said loudly as she stared at her friend before rushing to a phone. Yutaka and Mitsuo were hanging out at the Kai family's home. "Yutaka sweetie, did you do everything you need to do?" yawned Yutaka's mother, who was always more than tired lately thanks to her schedule. "Yeah, also I attended Yukiko's funeral. along with Dad, her friends, and Mitsuo here," Yutaka said silently as his mother walked towards him. "I'm sorry I couldn't be there, honey. My schedule was keeping me grounded even though I begged," Mrs. Kai said with a sad tone to her voice, which Yutaka looked at his mother to smile. "It's not your fault, Mom," he said as he watched his mother go into her room to flop on her bed from being exhausted. "Your mom's kind, Yutaka. Why is she so tired lately?" Mitsuo asked. His white and red-haired friend shook his head sadly. "She has been working all day and lately, many of the workers come in at night, giving Mom more work," Yutaka said with his lavender eyes darting to his mother's room, seeing her fainted figure on her bed. "I'm sorry to hear," Mitsuo said with a depressed tone to his voice. "I also think Mom may be depressed too. She was working so hard she sleeps a lot, and now we lost Yukiko," Yutaka said, a tear running down his cheek until he wiped it off. A knock on the window suddenly scared the teens as they looked to see glimmering red and black eyes staring back at them. "It's one of the Shiki." Yutaka started to freak. He forgot to make steaks this morning to keep him and Mitsuo safe. Mitsuo believed he was staring at death in the face. "Mitsuo, Yutaka?" a voice sounded, and instantly the boys knew who the voice belonged to. "Kurayami?" Yutaka asked the red and black-eyed girl who appeared in front of the light of their window, revealing her appearance. The gothic Lolita Jinru's eyes returned to their pale baby blue ones as soon as the light touched her. "We are glad that it was only you, Kurayami," Mitsuo sighed in relief while Mitsuo was scratching the back of his head nervously. "We thought you were one of the Inoshiki's freaks for a second," Mitsuo replied with enthusiastic-sounding nervousness. "Sorry, but I had a question for you both." Kurayami maintained her expressionless face, perhaps so no one would tell what she was thinking of. "Yeah? What is it, Kurayami?" Yutaka asked the Lolita, who looked at him with blank eyes. "Do you both trust me?" The question struck at them with confusion. Why would she ask that? "Of course we do, Kurayami. We trusted you ever since we have met you." Kurayami looked at both Mitsuo and Yutaka after Mitsuo's reply. "Well, I advise you to not trust me. Go as far to avoiding me." Yutaka and Mitsuo held jaw-dropped expressions at Kurayami's request. "Why would we do that? What about the other Shiki or Seishin? Maybe even Tsuneko? What about them?" Mitsuo asked Kurayami, who simply turned around. "Of course you can't trust them, for they are more trustworthy compared to me," Kurayami said, a tear escaping her right eye. Still staring at Kurayami from outside the window, Mitsuo and Yutaka wanted to believe that somewhere, inside her body of sorrow and hiding, was someone who truly wished to be loved and trusted despite knowing what she became. "We can't do that, Kurayami. We trust you no matter what," Mitsuo said to the Jinru girl, which she sighed as she wiped her eyes free of her tears. "I guess you want to face the consequences," Kurayami said with a saddened sigh and faced the boys. "Remember, if something horrible were to happen, blame me, and perhaps it would be best to state me," Kurayami said. The eyes of both